Okay, so session 31, Smoke and Snow. We start off with a carriage moving at breakneck speed across a white wasteland. Inside is Malcolm Harp, a member of the Vanguard of the Immortals, recently abducted by parties unknown whilst trying to track down a vampire that him and his accomplices believed that they had slain. After some of the vampire's victims themselves became vampires, a huge melee broke out in the village of New Zealand. His friends were away about other business. Malcolm had been remaining behind in the village to heal his wounds and rest up a bit from recent endeavours, but managed to rouse himself to marshal a defence force to fight back against this vampiric incursion. Between himself and the other guards, they were able to subdue the newly created vampires and kill them. Unfortunately, while this was going on, the original vampiric creature that both himself and his friends had faced, which they had mistakenly believed was slain, returned to New Zealand and attacked the guardhouse there. Whilst it was engaged in combat with Cotton Nickel, who was defending the guardhouse, a torch was knocked over, setting the building ablaze, and in the chaos and the smoke, the creature grabbed hold of Cotton Nickel and disappeared with him into the nearby darkness of the Wolf Forest. After the fires had been put out and Malcolm had given directions to see that everything else was dealt with and repairs were underway on the damaged defences, he roused up a group of soldiers, mainly the ones that had been loaned to them from Staffstone Tower, to set off and try and track down this vampiric creature and recover the abducted Cotton Nickel. They followed the tracks through the rising snow drifts as we're a week away from deep winter. The weather is already turning extremely harsh, and it's getting to the point where travel is very difficult, especially if you don't have specific sort of really heavy furs and heavy winter gear. It's becoming quite difficult to travel, especially when the snow is bad. But being the expert tracker he was, Malcolm and his group of guards found the trail of this vampire. It appeared to be leading to the east, away from the village. They followed it and were getting close, he believed, to gaining on this creature, when suddenly the group was attacked by a tide of vermin and other creatures. Most of the guards were pulled down beneath this furry tide of bodies and were consumed. Malcolm shouted to the two survivors to get to higher ground so they could be safe from these vermin and these rats and these other creatures of the night that had been summoned. As he was shouting that and he saw them start to scramble up a large rock, something dark and ragged swooped down out of the trees and struck him, and everything went dark. Sometime later, Malcolm awakes in what he thinks is a carriage. He looks around, he's a little bit blurry, still quite injured from previous exertions. He's bound in a carriage as it moves, painfully sort of inching his way around despite his bonds. He looks through one of the little windows, which is covered with a heavy piece of tattered cloth, and even in his blurry state, through the dried blood on his face, one of his eyes sort of half closed, he can see the snow rushing past outside. Realising that in his injured state he doesn't stand much chance alone, he can hear a couple of voices, maybe three, it's difficult to tell. One of his ears has taken a knock. He can hear voices on top of the carriage. However, he thinks to himself, he knows that his allies will soon be returning to New Zealand, and they'll inevitably find out what's happened and they'll attempt to follow him. So thinking quickly and with what resources he has to hand, he finds his possessions, which are still with him. His captors don't seem to have any interest in them, and he finds a few small items that he thinks are not vital, like notes and diaries and stuff that he can mostly remember anyway. And as this carriage moves, every now and then he drops one of these items out of the window of the cart, leaving a trail of breadcrumbs, if you will, for his companions. Now, as we know, his allies, Brock, Quentin, Weimar and Lanrivar, did indeed return to the village. They found out what had gone on. They followed the trail, rescued the 2 guards who were still sheltering on this rock against the hordes of rats that surrounded them. And they found out from these guards that Malcolm had been taken. So, setting off in search of him, they travelled to the east, eventually coming across what appeared, for all intents and purposes, to have once been a logging camp. It appeared deserted, but when they explored it, these ghoulish, cadaverous-like creatures that could paralyse a man with the scratch of their claws leapt out of wood piles, snowdrifts, carts, etc., and attacked them. They managed to fend them off despite Warmai being paralysed for a small portion of it, and eventually they located the trail of the cart that had taken Malcolm away. And they found the first of these items that he dropped as a trail of breadcrumbs for them to follow. So quickly jumping into their own slightly rickety cart with their 2 ponies, with Krosnon, their dwarven prospector friend, riding the cart, they set off after this trail. We join them as they race as quickly as they can towards the edge of the Great Glacier, just to the north of the logging camp. As they get there, they see the glacier appears to slope down, almost becoming flush with the landscape as it trails down, having melted at the edges. And they can see a smooth, almost path sort of worn into the glacier that leads up onto it proper. And following, heading up the side of it, they see the tracks of this heavy carriage, and the Brock looks over and sees the heavy footfalls and the hoof marks of at least 2 horses. As Krosnon gives them a quick look, they give him the nod, and he takes the cart up onto the glacier. There's a bit of skidding and a bit of uncertainty as you're all trying to balance out the cart. You make it up onto the top of the Great Glacier, and as you peer up ahead of you, in the distance, very small, just a little speck, dark against the pure whiteness and the sort of slight icy blueness of the Great Glacier, they see the shadow of this distant carriage heading away from them to the north at all speed. Now, assuming you guys are going to continue pursuing this carriage, it seems to be maybe a day or 2 ahead of you. They've got a bit of a head start. So I'm going to ask either Brock or Weimar, it's up to you which of you wants to do it. Can you roll me a D100? And this is to see whether you manage to make up a substantial amount of time. You've only got a 20% chance, I'm afraid, because they've got quite a head start.
Do you want to do it, Brock, or shall I? I think I've had pretty abysmal luck, so...
Yeah, I'll go for it. Weren't much good, though.
Okay, so can you now roll me a D3, please, Brock?
Okay. I'll just D3, D6 half it. A 1.
Okay, so assuming you guys don't rest at all, and when I say rest, obviously the cart could continue going, but it's not going to be like a restful night's sleep if you're trying to keep the cart moving, because you're in a tiny cart that's full of your stuff, and it's quite rickety and it's sliding and skidding along these ice flows. So it's down to you guys whether you want to pursue them or whether you want to rest at any point. But assuming you don't, the enemy cart will have reached the position it's now in on the map when you catch up to them. But it's up to you guys if you want to rest at all. I will point out, for every day you travel without resting, you will need to make a constitution check, or you will gain an exhaustion level, because you're literally pushing yourself, especially in this cold weather, and you're not able to eat properly or cook anything or anything like that. You're literally burning the candle at both ends to try and make up time and catch up with this cart that Malcolm's
Freezing
inside.
the candle.
Indeed.
So remind us, what is exhaustion, and how
Okay.
does it increase in
No
terribleness?
problem. I anticipated you might ask that. So, but basically, the maximum number of exhaustion levels you can get is 6. If you get 6 exhaustion levels, you die.
Mm-hmm.
If you get 1 exhaustion level, you get -4 penalty to ability checks. If you get 2, your speed is halved. 3, you get -4 to attack and saves. 4, your hit point maximum is halved. And 5, your speed is reduced to 0, because that's literally like you're collapsing from exhaustion, you can barely move. Healing magic reduces a number of levels of exhaustion equal to the number of dice healed. Resting for 8 hours reduces your exhaustion levels by 1, as long as you eat a ration, as well as the normal like hit point recovery.
Yeah. So, can we do things in shifts, or are we both required to make the?
That's what I was going to ask you.
You would both be required to make the roll, because, as I say, even if you take it in shifts, unless you stop and sort of make camp effectively, you're not going to get a good night's rest, even if you're just relaxing in the carts.
Right. The other quick question was, is there any sort of sign of them slowing down at any point, or stopping, or resting, or anything?
There does not appear to be. They just appear to be. I mean, it's difficult
the
to
one
tell
day,
at the distance you're at, but they don't appear to be slowing down or stopping. They just appear to be going.
Right.
But
Okay.
if you assume, and you may do, it's entirely up to you, if you assume that like the carriage is driven by creatures akin to those you've seen at the logging camp, which doesn't seem unreasonable, because you know the carriage was at the logging camp, and if they were normal humans and they waltzed through that like ghoul infested like hellhole, then they're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
But if it's these ghouls, or heaven forbid like a vampire or something like that, obviously you've no idea how much rest such creatures need, if they need rest at all. And you certainly know, I mean, obviously the cart wouldn't be pulled by vampires, but you know that vampires can apparently feed their blood to other creatures to like give them increased strength and stuff like that. So it doesn't seem unreasonable that, you know, if you're a vampire or one of these creatures and you've got some horses, you know, you give them a quick top up to like keep the horses going.
Well, I mean, Brock, if we're making decisions, is keen to push on, at least to start with.
Yeah.
Just because we're going to lose sight of them potentially, if nothing else.
Okay, so for the first day, can you both make me a constitution check? And obviously, Brock, you can make the ones for Lan as well.
Okay. Uzu there.
Okay, so buoyed up by their hardy Ice Walker constitution, at the end of the first day, Brock and Lan are doing fine. Weimar, you're already starting to feel like the nagging effects of tiredness, so that would be like 1 exhaustion level, which is -4 to your ability checks. On the second day, do you continue to push on? Like, say you've got 4 days of this effectively.
Yeah, I'm still keen to push on.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay,
I'm built for tropical waters though, and
that's it. And I mean, to be fair, if we're in like the sort of the summer or the lesser months of winter, you probably wouldn't have to make quite as many checks. But we are starting to get into like the real like biting winter, cold winds, just like sapping the energy out of you.
Bloody hell.
Ooh. Okay, so Lam Rivar's still doing okay, but
Yeah.
for you guys with your 20s, Brock, you're starting to feel the first sort of strains of exhaustion. You know, your eyes are struggling to stay open. Weimar, you are starting to feel like really quite sluggish, The cold is starting to penetrate through the furs that you're wearing, and your teeth are maybe chattering a little bit. You're having to like pull your furs tighter around yourself. The snow's whipping around you.
As I see this sort of taking effect, John, can I use my bosun's palm or balm, sorry, that I've got, which is sort of gives you greater endurance. It's one of the herbs I've found.
Oh yes, I recall.
Would that have an effect in this situation?
Do you know what? Let's have a quick look at it. So,
I'm not 100% sure on the description there if that would work or not.
the herb stimulates the body's energies, bringing on great endurance. So yeah, I would say that if you're going to give that to somebody, that can remove an exhaustion level.
Okay, so I'm going to give that to Weimar after 2 days he's getting progressively worse.
Okay, so as you're travelling, as the cart's moving along, Brock sort of scrapes some snow off the cart, puts it in like a little pot, like flint and steel. He manages to like heat it up a little bit, enough to like melt it into like still quite cold water, and he mixes this bosun's balm, this like quite almost thyme like herb into it, and he holds it out towards you, Weimar.
Yeah, I'll down it.
Yeah,
with no question.
You drink it. It's quite strong and pungent, and it's got like a weird sort of like almost licoricey, like aniseed sort of aftertaste to it. And you have to like struggle to like try and like keep it down, but it's not a particularly pleasant flavour. But after a few minutes of like ingesting it, you do start to feel like almost like a slight warmth coming back into your limbs, and you feel a little bit more energetic. So you will go down to 1 exhaustion level. Okay,
Let's save those 20s for combat, guys.
Okay, so day 3. Comrades again.
Yeah, we'll push on.
Yep, looking good. Yep. And
Nice. That bosun's bomb's working. Seems to be working.
yeah, well, let's see.
Oh, that was Brock's roll.
Yeah. No. I'm not built for this.
Okay, so Weimar's back up to 2.
Yeah.
Brock's still on 1. The lands on 0. She's doing pretty well. Okay, so you're doing pretty well. I mean, it's taken a toll on you, but you are sort of gaining on the carriage in front of you. You can see it comparatively getting closer as you race towards it. You reckon at some point, probably near the end of the next day, if you keep pushing on at this pace and nothing untoward happens, you will probably catch up with them. Do you guys push on?
Is there any way that I can adjust this roll in any way? Can I take some of the brunt of Weimar's work, or Lan even, and reduce, to give him a bonus or give us a penalty, or sort of try and take effect?
I will say, if you're sort of doing some of their duties, when you do your roll, you're going to add +2 to your roll, so effectively like a +2 penalty for you, because obviously you're rolling under, and that will in turn give Weimar a -2 bonus on his D20 roll. So yeah, so as you're travelling on this last day, obviously you're all like doing various bits and pieces to keep the cart moving. Seeing that Weimar's exhausted, like Brock's like, no, just take it easy. I'll deal with this. Don't worry about it. So both make your con rolls. Obviously, you get a -2 bonus. Weimar, you get a +2 penalty. Brock.
So I'll do Lan's one. She's a machine.
She is.
Well,
whatever jobs you were doing for Weimar, it seems to have worked.
Oh, yeah. I failed.
And you're paying for it.
That's it, you're paying the price. So Brock's up to 2, and Weimar is on 2. So that means that both of you have -4 to your ability checks, and your speed is effectively halved. And as you're sort of passing by this area, the mirrored peaks, you see a dark shadow fall over the area. And as you look up into the sky, you see the silhouette of this great frost worm returning to its lair, sort of passing over the area you're in. However, it's high up. You're a tiny cart. It's probably not going to notice you. Weimar, roll me a d12, anything but 1, you're fine. Yep, so it flies straight over without even noticing you. And you continue your journey after the cart. So, near the end of your 4th day of pursuit, like you say, you've been pushing hard. You see, you've not got long before the light's starting to fade. You've not got much daylight left. Malcolm, can you please roll me a d12? Oh,
11.
nice. Okay, so you basically have 13 rounds until, like, effectively until the light fades and it's sort of twilight. So let me actually note that down. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to move you guys onto the next map. Here we go. Just wait for them to load up for you all. Okay, and what you should see, it's like the generic sort of zone map. You should see your cart a short way behind the carriage. You've got Krosnon, Weimar, Lan and Brock in there. I've put Malcolm's token a little bit just off to the left of the carriage because obviously he's inside it. As you're racing closer, you can see that the carriage in front appears to have 2 horses pulling it, and there are three figures. I can't count. There are 3 figures wearing sort of like long, tattered, ragged like coats or cloaks, perhaps. They have the same bold, pallid, sort of pointy-eared, cadaverous look of the creatures that you fought at the logging cabin. You can just about make out the head of one of them, like the back of the head, as he sat on the front of the carriage, like lashing the horses on, and the other 2 are on the back of it. It's quite a substantial carriage. I mean, it's a carriage. You guys are in a cart. So it's got like a roof on it. You can see like windows, although they must have some sort of like covering over them. You can just see like maybe like a Hessian sacking or something that's been turned into like makeshift curtains. And you can hear the tireless pounding of the hooves of the horses as they sort of continue racing away from you. But you've been gaining on them. You've pushed yourself to the brink by not resting, but you have gained on them. You're at the point now where like, someone on your cart with like a bow or something like that would be within range of the cart in front. You're not near enough so you can like, leap across the carts or anything like that, but you're getting closer.
Yeah, I'm definitely shooting my bow.
Okay, no problems. And so yeah, feel free to make a bow attack. That's fine.
Yep. Where's the longbow?
And I'm also going to ask Malcolm, can you please make me a listen at the doors roll? It should be on your abilities thingy. Okay, so who are you shooting at?
Just the closest one that I can see.
Okay, yep, no problem. So you take a shot at one of the ghoul-like creatures standing on the back. Now, because you failed your listen at doors roll, Malcolm, you've been sort of... these creatures, they seem to sort of be under the mistaken impression that you're either like paralyzed or like insensate, so they've not really been keeping that much of a watch on you. So you've taken the opportunity to basically, I'll play up to this and pretend I am like knocked out or whatever, so I can rest and recuperate, and I've added a bit of like hit points back onto your total. So you've been lying there sort of recovering. As you've been doing that, you've heard the three creatures. You can't really make out what they've been saying, but you've heard the three creatures talking, and then occasionally, only in the hours of darkness, you have heard like a muffled voice, like a fourth voice that seemed to join in the conversation, although you don't know who that is. Now, you haven't heard the sound of your allies' cart riding against the wind, rushing to catch up with you. However, what you do hear is you hear like a, and then you hear like a cry, like, ah! Of one of these creatures on the back of the cart as it is struck by an arrow from Weimar. And I'm going to make a quick roll for this guy. If I get a 1, he's going to fall off the cart because he wasn't really expecting to get shot.
Oh.
Okay, yeah. So you definitely hear it. And Malcolm, as you sort of drag yourself up to the window on the western side of the cart, you actually see this ghoul tumble off the cart with an arrow sticking out of his shoulder. And obviously the map's static, but obviously you guys are moving pretty quickly. So he lands in the snow in a tangle of limbs, white spray going up, and he's quickly left behind. And the same, anyone who falls off the carts is going to get left behind like really quickly. Because you're literally, the vampirically powered horses of the people who've kidnapped you are going at breakneck speed. Luckily for you guys, however, your cart has like double the number of horses they have. So it's sort of roughly evening out. But even so, your friends have had to like really push themselves. But you are now aware, as you sort of like peer out, you see this ghoul like fall off and into the snow, and you sort of peer around, lifting up this sort of burlap sack that's being used as a curtain. You look out, you can see the small rickety cart of your allies. You see the dwarf Krosnon like lashing the horses on. You can just about make out Weimar sort of stood at the front, just like lowering his bow, probably notching another arrow to it. He looks like quite tired and haggard. He's probably got like dark rings around his eyes.
It's just ice, like the whole beard just...
Yeah, the wind's whipping his hair around his face. Standing at the back of the cart like two gigantic statues hewn of pure muscle is Brock and Lanrivar. Lanrivar looks fresh as a fucking daisy. She looks absolutely fine. Her red hair's like flowing out behind her in the wind. Brock looks like every inch the man mountain is, but you know him. You can tell that he's obviously tired as well. And you can see like the ice is like encrusted in his stubble and in his furs and his hair, etc. And they're really sort of like having to like work the cart. You can see Krosnon's like lashing the horses like it's going out of fashion just to try and like keep up with this devil-ridden cart that you are currently held in.
Are my hands tied with rope or chains?
Your hands are bound behind you. Basically, you've managed to sort of loosen it a bit. So you basically worked your hand around like that, so you could like pull the curtain away and have like a quick look out. Yeah. But it's not like very convenient, obviously. But yeah, your hands are bound. Your legs aren't bound because they think you're paralysed, but your arms have been bound.
And is my sword or my equipment nearby?
Yeah, because it's all basically just been chucked in the cart with you because they think you're paralysed. So they're like, well, why not?
Okay. So could I kind of take my sword out of the scabbard and kind of do that hands behind the back, kind of cutting off the rope like Merry and Pippin?
You most certainly can. Obviously, that's going to take you a little while, so that's what you'll be doing for this round. Yeah. Effectively, but yeah, you start doing that and you feel like the rope start to slacken as like you're like cutting through it and the cords are giving way. So as that's going on, obviously Weimar's taken his action, so we've still got Brock and Lan.
Yeah, I think my understanding is we're probably too far away still for... Well, Lan's got no sort of ranged weapon. I've only got a spear. I think we're outside that sort of range, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're just trying to make sure that the cart stays together and trying to get a best look at what we're facing. See if there's any more of these creatures, and I assume one of them's driving, or is it driverless?
Yeah, the one at the front is driving.
Yeah. So yeah, we're just trying to get Crosnon to get a bit closer, so we can pull up by the side of it, or just preparing for.
Okay. No problems.
If we can't get close enough.
So we're effectively going on to the NPCs go. So having seen that a threat is coming up behind them, and you've already taken out one of their men, they are actually going to slow down because they don't appear to have like ranged weapons either. So in order to save having to move everything around, I've effectively just duplicated the map with everything slightly nearer.
Cool.
So yeah, on their turn they slow down, so that's what the driver's doing. This creature here, if it'll let me tag it, is going to, well, this one here that I'm going to move into the middle is basically going to try and jump across onto your cart as it's slowing down. So like I say, it doesn't have any ranged weapons itself. So I'm going to make a roll for that to see whether it manages to make it. It can jump 1d6 times 3 feet. And obviously it needs to get at least 5, which it doesn't. So this ghoul goes to jump across the gap, misjudges it, falls between the two carts, and is swiftly left behind. You hear it sort of like, you see as you look back over your shoulder, Brock, you see it sort of rising to its feet and like shaking its fists and screaming in impotent rage as it's quickly left behind, and its cries are swallowed up by the keening winds. Okay, on to the next round. What do you guys want to do?
Brock, do you want to go first now that there's only the driver left?
Sorry, if I'm free, am I free, John?
Yep,
Am I?
you are, yep.
Yeah, Malcolm, of course.
So, and sorry, this window is in a door, is it?
Yeah, there's like a normal door on the side.
Yeah, okay. So, I guess what I want to try and do is pick up my gear, kick the door open, and try and jump onto the wagon.
Okay, yeah. So you kick the door open. Now the way I'm working this in terms of jumping, as I just rolled for the ghoul when it was jumping, from like a standing jump, because there's not enough room to take a run up, you can jump 1d6 times 3 feet. However, there are a number of modifiers which are applied afterwards. So what's your strength, Malcolm?
13.
Okay, so that's a +1. What sort of armour are you wearing?
I am wearing leather armor.
So that's a -1, so you've got no modifier at the minute. I presume you're not carrying like scads of treasure on you.
No, just my sword and a bow and
that's fine.
A handful of food. Yeah.
So effectively, the modifiers have cancelled out, so you need to just roll a d6, times it by 3, and you need to get at least 5 to cover the gap.
Okay. Okay. Which I did get.
So, as you guys are sort of drawing level with it, the door on the eastern side of the carriage gets booted open. You see Malcolm like still with some like of his stuff tucked under his arm because he's not had a chance to like put it all on, and he leaps across into the cart with you guys.
I should just reach out a big arm and just like secure him as he sort of lands and get him on board.
Yeah, no problems. Okay, so you're all in the cart. What are you guys doing?
Has the driver noticed this, do we think, at this point?
He's almost definitely noticed it because Malcolm just kicked over the door and leapt across the gap. So he's definitely going to have noticed.
I'll be bringing up a new arrow.
Yep.
So if anyone's got any other plans, it's...
Well, I was going to say, do we want to just slow down and get a bit of distance, or do we want to try and get rid of them? Not sure what.
Well, he is slowed down, right?
Yes.
So we
Somewhat.
probably want to speed up. Now.
I mean, was there anything else in that wagon? Did Malcolm see anything else in there for any reason to?
You've not seen
Yeah.
like scads of treasure or anything like that. The only thing of particular note for you, Malcolm, was, as I mentioned, you had heard like a muffled fourth voice. So you know there's like a fourth person somewhere on the carriage, but you don't know where or who it is.
Okay. So when I land, I'll call out that there's a fourth creature somewhere that only makes noise at night.
Was the noise coming from under your feet? I ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We encountered one of these creatures of the night in one of the carts back at the logging camp, and it was hidden under the planks of the cart to hide it from the sun.
Oh.
Now, obviously,
And,
because we're like still in round, you guys have been like
Yeah.
talking a little bit. So why, Mark, you've not been talking? Do you want to take a shot or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, not melee.
You know, not unless you're planning on like drawing the sun sword and like leaping across.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it.
Okay. 5 damage. Now this guy isn't at risk of falling off because he's like sat down on the like foot plate, I suppose you'd call it, the driver's bit. But yeah, you see an arrow thunk into the back of its shoulder, and you hear a scream of pain. Now, on its go again, it's just gonna leave the cart, and it's gonna try and leap across the gap like its fellows did. So d6 times 3. So yeah, so it makes it across the gap and sort of lands in the middle of you guys. Now obviously that's effectively its movement, but since it's leapt, rather than make its full complement of attacks, I'm going to say it can only make a single attack. Since it's effectively in the middle of you four, really, I'm just going to make a quick roll to see which of you it goes for, because it's just like thrashing about with its claws effectively. So 1, so it's going for Weimar. So claw attack.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm guessing 15 probably hits.
Yep.
So that's 3 points of damage, and you need to make a paralysis save.
Yep.
Okay.
Nice.
So yeah, as it thrashes around, one of its claws scrapes against your arm, and you feel like a small trickle of like warmth running down underneath your furs. But you do feel that brief sluggishness in your limbs, threatening to lock up, which, considering you're already exhausted, is sort of doubly dangerous. But knowing that, like, oh, if I sort of stop moving in this cold and I fall off the cart, that's probably me done, forces you to, like, you just force your body against all the odds to, like, keep going, and you overcome it.
Yeah. So what Weimar is doing is using his longbow, because it's a big one, because he didn't swap weapons. He's using the longbow to keep the thing at bay.
Yep.
Just trying to like just keep the hands moving. As long as the hands move, that's good.
Indeed. Okay, so on to the next round. So what do you guys want to do?
Well, I'm going to suggest to the rest of the group, let's try and light up that carriage, set it on fire.
Look, busy here.
Yeah. Why am I so like, kind of a bit busy as he's like fending off this like bull with its lashing tongue and its claws, just like going
as
at it.
I'm saying that, the two-handed sword will be coming out, and I'll be chopping into that, and I'll say me and Lan will deal with this foul creature,
Okay.
and we'll go to attack it, and I suggest we light that thing up, because am I right in saying that we're still in daylight, you said, wasn't it?
Yeah, you are still in daylight at the moment. I'm tracking the number of rounds. You've got loads of time off.
So light the carriage up while it's daylight, and that creature will succumb to the sun.
Okay, so do you want to do Brock and Lan's attacks on this creature?
Yep.
It's already injured. It's got like an arrow sticking out of its shoulder from Weimar.
Okay, I shall take an attack first. That's me. 4 damage.
Okay, so it sways dangerously close to the edge of the carriage, so nearly falling off, but it manages to grab hold of the edge and it's holding itself on as Lan launches herself in.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as she does so with one of its long hands, it sort of like smashes her across the face, not causing any damage, just like the flat of its hand forcing her back. It's still just about clinging onto life, but you can see it's literally holding itself up using the side of your cart. There's like blood flowing freely from it, from the vicious wound that you've inflicted on it. Okay, Malcolm and Weimar, what are you up to?
I would like to light a torch.
Okay.
And have we slowed down as well? Is the wagon still near us?
Yeah, you're sort of keeping pace with each other at the minute.
Okay, so I'd like to light a torch, throw it in through the open door.
Okay,
I
yeah.
hope to catch the sack on fire.
Okay,
Yeah,
make a ranged attack roll. You only need to get 10 or more because you're just trying to lob it through the door.
That looks good. Yeah.
Yep, so you sort of like, as you can hear the clashing of Lan and Brock's weapons and this creature snarling, as like there's a brief opening in the swirling melee that's engulfing this fairly small cart. You see a gap as you light your torch. You hurl it through the gap. It sails through the air into the cart, the carriage opposite to you, and you hear this sort of like the inside as some bits of it catch fire. So yeah, it has caught light, which will obviously spread as the rounds go on.
Yeah.
So Brock and Lan have done some horrendous damage to this creature.
Yeah,
I presume it's not menacing me right now.
No, not at all. Not at all.
So I'll sling the longbow over one shoulder. I have 2 flasks of lamp oil. Get one of them. Trying to chuck it in the wagon. Cart, rather. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. So again, roll a d20 for your ranged attack. You only need a 10.
There we go.
Yep, so following Malcolm's example, you hurl your lamp after it, and you hear the smash of glass as it sails through the door and sort of spreads the fire. Now, I'm basically going to make a d6 roll at the start of each round, and anything but a 1, the fire is going to spread. Because like the carriage is made of wood, albeit it's a bit damp because it's been in the snow and whatever. So there's that, but there's very little chance the fire's not going to spread. Okay, so that's all you guys gone. So it's the creature. It's going to attack Brock because he's like seems to be the main threat at the moment. So okay, so it's getting its full complement of attacks now. It's not like leaping anymore. So first of all, 2 claw attacks. No. No. And its final bite attack. No. Okay, so this sort of half dead raggedy ass ghoul is trying to like get a grip and find purchase on your muscly figure, Brock, and you're literally just like pushing it away and just like face palming it away every time it comes near. Just like no, No, you barely even having to use your weapon. It's so weak because it's like nearly dead. But somehow it's sort of unholy, sort of clinging to life. But for how much longer, I expect, until you guys have your actions in this round. So we go on to the next round. Over to you guys. I'm going to make a quick roll to see whether the fire spreads. Anything but a 1. Yeah, so the fire has spread a little bit more.
I'll let Lan take a swing at this creature while I'm fending it off. Oh, she misses. So I shall step in and also swing at it. Oh, terrible.
Okay, so you both go to swing at this creature, but somehow, despite the fact it's like nearly dead and it's just clinging on with its sort of claws to what passes as a life in its manner, it's somehow almost with a sort of like drunken monk style, with it swaying and half falling. It's very difficult to predict where it's going to go next, and neither of you is able to get a blow on it as the blaze continues to spread in the carriage that's riding alongside you.
We're not used to these confined spaces.
Indeed. So Weimar and Malcolm, what do you want to do?
You want to go first?
No, I was thinking let's keep to the order that we did last time. So you go if you
Okay.
want to.
Cool. So I would like to shoot this horse, the lead horse on the carriage.
Yeah, that is not a problem.
What is that? It's a 17 for 2 points.
Okay, yep, so you have hit this horse. You see the arrow sink into one of its flanks, however it is still going. Like you can see like a little thin rivulet of blood matting its coat running down from where the arrow sticks into it. Weimar.
I suppose I'll pull out the sun sword and try and fence the ghoul.
Okay.
So here it goes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that'll do it. So Brock and Lan, as you're sort of getting ready to sort of weather whatever next attack this creature can sort of throw against you in its lumbering, half-dead state, Weimar, would you like to describe how you dispose of it?
So let's see. How are we located here? So I suppose because it's kind of doing like on both sides with Brock and Lan, so it's not paying attention to what's going on behind it. So it's a shot of from the front. The ghoul is just like barely holding on, and the sun sword like bursts through the chest as Weimar just like lunges forward, maybe being bumped by the cart's movements. So like, ugh. And it as the sun sword is wont to do, the ghoul just disintegrates from the chest down.
Indeed it does. And as your carts are still racing forward, as it's consumed by the holy fires of the sun sword, basically all that's left of its body is like this pile of ash that is quickly swept away by the movement of your cart and sort of disappears off, leaving like an ashen trail behind you. Looking across to your left, all of you, you can see the cart, the carriage that's riding next to you. The flames are now starting to like lick out the doors and sort of come up through the gaps in the planks onto the actual roof of the carriage. What do you want to do?
Is there any sign of any sort of creature inside the carriage that may have come out from?
You've not seen any further signs of life other than the ghouls.
Okay.
Do the wheels have spokes, or are they like a solid?
They're like the solid wooden wheels with like
Solid
metal
wheels.
strips along them.
And what's in the distance? Is it still just like open glacier?
Yeah, it's open glaciers. In the very far distance, you can see that it sort of starts to rise up into jagged, snow-covered mountainous peaks, but that's like in the far distance.
So that's some way away.
Yeah, yeah.
How close to darkness is it?
Let's see. So around like 10 seconds. You think you've maybe got a minute, maybe two. Like literally, like as you're sort of like looking around, like now you've not got to concentrate on like ghouls in your midst and whatever. The light is already starting to fade. You're in the sort of last dying embers of the daylight. Like say you've maybe got just over a minute.
So do we want to get away from this thing if this creature comes out, if there is a creature inside? Or do we want to stay and make sure that we deal with it? Because at the moment there's no threat to us. But
Yeah.
do we want to watch what happens and see if this fire does enough damage?
Yeah,
Definitely
very
don't wanna-
swift. So I don't think there's a chance of us making a way,
No.
regardless.
Definitely, we don't want to wait for darkness. I think we either. Yeah.
Okay,
Can
Malcolm.
I shoot the horse again?
Yeah, go for it.
Try and get stopped.
What's is it a solid wooden wagon, John?
Yeah,
did
pretty
you
much,
say?
yeah.
So it's got walls and everything.
Yes,
So, yeah.
That's 3 more. Is that enough to down it? No.
It's not enough to down it, but it is sort of racking up the injuries.
Has it slowed down at all?
It has started to slow because, as I say, you've basically been like aiming for like the flanks and like the muscle mass of the creature, so it is starting to slow down a little bit, which is sort of like the back of the carriage is starting to go like that a little bit because obviously one horse is going at full gallop, the other's starting to slow, so it's like sort of skidding around a little bit as it's moving. And now smoke is billowing out of it, flames are fully like engulfing the roof now. They're licking out of the windows as thick plumes of black smoke are billowing up and sort of trailing away into the distance as it goes. Then, as you're all sort of like watching this fiery inferno of a cart, you hear a loud boom, and something long, about 6 foot long, maybe 5 foot wide, oblong of metal, drops out from under the carriage and sort of like starts disappearing off behind you as like obviously you guys are still going forward.
I'm going to dive off at that point.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, yeah, that's absolutely fine. We won't really worry about the map for this point. I'm going to say make me a dex roll, both of you, see whether you take like a few sort of hit points of damage to leap it off a moving carriage. It's not going to be massive even if you do, but don't forget if you've got exhaustion levels you'll be at a penalty. But that's fine, it's not going to matter with that.
Still made it with that one, yeah.
Okay, so the two of you leap off, you don't take any damage, you manage to land in like soft bits of snow. Obviously if you want to land to jump off you need to make a roll for her as well.
No, I probably would have left her on there because I know how dangerous these things are, and I think, yeah,
Okay.
I wouldn't have encouraged her to do it.
So what I'm effectively going to do, and this is just for like ease and not having to use another map, I'm just going to move Brock and Malcolm to the back here. Just to now, obviously the carts are continuing moving forward, so you'll be like getting left behind.
Yep.
But you know, it's just to save having to like jump between two maps, basically.
Yeah, it's fine.
So yeah, you guys, by the time you jump off, because obviously the carts are going forward. I mean, it's only like a few moments, but like you've already like left the sort of like the metal box a little bit of the ways behind. So you know you've probably got like a meter or two to like jog to like get to where it is.
Yep.
You think you look being like very in tune with like nature, both of you, and being used to like tracking movements by the sun and the stars and stuff like that. The two of you sort of glance upwards almost like instinctively at the same time as you're both sort of jogging towards this metallic oblong, and you estimate you've probably got less than a minute now. There's literally just the tiniest little speck of the sun you can see in like the most pallid, feeble amount of daylight that's like flickering over the horizon.
Yeah. And as we're running towards it, is it fully metal box?
It's an entirely metal wooden box. You can see that it appears to be made out of very thick iron or some sort of similar metal. It's like riveted, so it's made out of metal panels and like riveted together. It, for all intents and purposes, it looks like it's been sealed, so it's like airtight, watertight, whatever. It's a big, heavy lid, for want of a better term, on top of it. You can't see any obvious like massive padlock or chains or anything like that securing it.
Yeah. Well, I'll just, as we're running towards, I'm going to just say, Malcolm, help me get the lid off as quick as possible. And I'm just going to put all my muscle into trying to lift this lid off.
Yeah, and I'll do the same.
Okay, no problems. So, what I'm going to ask is, can you both make me an open door roll?
Open door.
It's on your abilities tab.
All right. Oh, there it is. Sorry. Oh, that didn't work. I'll just roll a d6, shall I? No, I've only got a 2.
Okay, so you're both sort of starting to work at it, but it's like been very securely riveted. Now there's nothing to stop you trying again. It's just obviously, can you open it before the sun goes down? I mean, you've basically got like, obviously in game terms, I mean, you wouldn't know this exactly, but you've effectively got like 2 rounds, so like 20 seconds before the sun goes down. But before we get to your next roll, I'm going to ask like Weimar, you and Lan, and obviously Krosnon are still on the cart. The carriage is like fully aflame now, like bits of it are dropping off and sizzling as they're landing in the snow. The horse that Malcolm shot, you think he's probably like caused it to go lame with his like shots, because as it's been running, basically the axles, it's not able to pull the arrows out. They've just been sort of like working their way further into like its flank, and it's really starting to slow down. It's starting to get that odd sort of like limping gait in like one of its back legs. So the cart is starting to slow down, and it's literally just like a fireball with like 2 horses pulling it now, and plumes of black choking smoke rising up into the sky.
Yeah, I'd be saying to Crosland that we need to turn around.
Crosland's like, right you are, and he starts turning. Obviously he's having to take like a fairly wide like turning circle because you're on ice, etc. But he starts turning the cart round, and he'll obviously be heading back towards where your fellows are.
Yep.
So effectively next round, if you guys want to attempt opening the box again, you can do.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best option.
Ooh, nice.
Brock's struggling with exhaustion at the minute.
Indeed he is. Okay, however, just as you're sort of starting to despair of ever getting this open, Brock, you hear like a hang as Malcolm manages to prise this lid off. However, it is like a so you basically opened it, but it's like a big solid chunk of metal. So I'm going to ask each of you to make a strength roll now to see if you can literally lift it up and move it, because it's like deliberately designed to be heavy, so it can't easily just be thrown off.
Yep. I've got +4 to that as well, haven't I?
Yep.
I didn't do
I
that.
think when you roll a 1, you don't necessarily do
Oh, no,
any better.
It's fine. Yeah, so
I'm putting everything into it, regardless of exhaustion.
So between the two of you, you heave this lid off, and as you do, you see another one of these vampiric creatures, its mouth stained with blood, arms crossed across its chest, lying in this metal coffin. As the sunlight starts to stream in, it starts to hiss and steam. However, it's nothing like the one you previously destroyed in this way, Brock, because the sunlight's nowhere near as strong. However, I effectively have to make like a death save each round for this creature, or it disintegrates. You've got like 2 rounds of daylight left, so for the first one I'm going to make it save. Okay, so it succeeds. So despite the fact it's steaming and hissing and its flesh is bubbling, it's not like burnt to a crisp, no doubt due to the sort of pallid, feeble nature of the daylight. Now, it basically launches itself upwards out of this coffin. Its intent presumably to like deal with you two and then get back in the coffin and pull the lid on, or just to deal with you two and hope it can survive the daylight. But you guys get to go first. Basically, it's spending its round sort of launching itself out, so it's not going to get to attack this round.
So that's 9 points of damage from the
Yeah.
Sword of Respect.
It's poor. I'm sure 11 don't hit it.
It does not. However, the Sword of Respect cleaves into its undead flesh, and you're rewarded when like a hiss of steam escapes from the rent you have opened in the fairly sort of, I suppose, scantily clad's not the right word, but you guys are wearing like thick furs and stuff like that, whereas it doesn't care about the cold. So it's like clad in like just like basic clothing, not even like your normal cold weather gear. Okay, so on to the next round. It needs to make another death save.
Ooh.
Which it succeeds at as the last of the daylight fades away. So now it will get to attack this turn. So effectively we're going to do initiative. So does one of you guys want to roll a d6? I'll roll one for the vampire and we'll see who gets to go first.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm at a mighty 2.
I'm at a mighty 2.
Okay, so we're going simultaneously. So you guys do yours first, but obviously even if you kill it, it will still get to attack because it's all happening at the same time.
Okay.
And we're basically assuming that anyone can hit anyone at the minute because you're all like close in.
Yeah, that's 6 points of damage from me.
Yep, so the Sword of Respect flashes out again.
Rocky's having all sorts of trouble.
Well, he is pretty exhausted, to be fair.
Yep.
He's not exactly at his best, but the Sword of Respect
Stumbling.
is cleaving through it. Okay, so I'm going to make an attack for this creature, and he gets the 1 attack. I'm going to roll to see which of you it attacks, because you're all sort of in amongst it. So 1 to 3, Brock. Otherwise, Malcolm. Okay, so it's Brock. So it's going
An easy target.
Well, yeah, you are quite a large target.
Yeah,
So
a slow one at a
it
minute.
lashes out with its gnarled fingernails, and probably ultimately fails to hit you with that roll.
Oh, it's close.
Yeah, that's not too bad for saying I rolled fairly poorly, but
Yeah, 18 in it.
it lashes out with its claws and like tears a chunk of your furs away as it hisses at you. The steam that was rising from it starting to die down and fade to nothing as the last of the daylight fades away. So we go on to the next round. One of you guys want to roll for initiative again? And on the next round after this, the cart will have turned around and you'll be able to enter the combat if you wish. Okay, so it's the vampire going first. So again, I'll roll 1 to 3 Brock, otherwise Malcolm. Okay, so it's going for Malcolm. So touch attack. Yeah, perhaps put off its stride by exposure to daylight. It lashes out wildly, but with fairly little sort of thought as to where it's aiming its attacks, and with your typical sort of elven grace, you are easily able to like outmaneuver it, like jumping off snowdrifts and evade its attacks. It's over to you guys.
Okay, so I'll swing again. 17's a hit, is it?
That's exactly what you need to hit it.
So that's 6 more.
Okay,
Now
so
we're coming.
Oh yeah.
Once again, the sword of respect stabs out and finds the creature's undead flesh. Then Brock comes wading in with his double-hander, swings it round, and actually like slices off one of the creature's arms. It sort of stumbles back, hissing. You can see like blood just dribbling in a strange oozing motion from the stump of one of its arms. Okay, so the creature's obviously already done its thing. So in this round, I'm going to move Weimar and Lan in because the cart sort of comes rumbling up. Krosnon screeches it to a stop. Weimar and Lan can like jump out. Obviously it's slowed down so you don't take any damage. Does one of you guys want to roll for initiative? And I will roll for the vampire. On a mighty 1.
4 for us.
Okay, so you guys first.
I should go first. Yeah.
Yeah, you carry on. Yeah.
Oh, that is a miss.
It is.
Okay. Oh, we'll leave it for Weimar to
So don't forget you've still got Lan as well, so
finish him off.
so Weimar.
Well, how far am I? Because I am very slow at the minute.
Yeah, to be fair, obviously I've not moved the cart to this, but Krosnon's literally like screeched the cart to a stop, like right next to where this is going on. So you can literally just jump out and you're there.
Yeah, so I'm gonna fall off the cart. Let's see. Yeah, presumably undead, John. Right?
Yes, very much so.
I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say.
It's sort of like the poster child for undead.
Oh man.
Okay, so despite the blazing light of the sun sword, you're unable to land a blow on it. We've still got Lan left though. So Brock, if you make your roll for Lan.
Yeah, I'm not sure she can hit it. But she will take a swing at it nevertheless, because she probably wouldn't know that. I'm not sure that'll hit anyway. No.
Okay, so against all the odds, this creature has survived. Okay. So let me just have a quick look. So as it's sort of fending off these blows from you, it lets out a loud undulating howl, and you hear nearby what sound like a strange sort of chittering noise answering it. And as you sort of look up, you see in the darkness, sort of approaching your position, what appear to be like large leathery winged shapes like fluttering towards your position. However, because that's its speech effectively, it's still going to get to do a touch attack. I'm just going to roll a d4 to see who it attacks, because you're all sort of in this swirling mass of people. So let's see, 1, 2, 3. So it's Brock. Okay, so touch attack against Brock. I'm sure you're all glad that my rolls are being typically amazing. So yeah, so it flails around in what seems to be like almost its dying gasp, but it does manage to land a blow on you. So we're on to initiative again, guys.
Okay, here it goes. Oh,
That's a mighty 3 for me.
yeah, 3 for me.
Okay, so we're simultaneous again. So obviously you guys do yours first, and then I'll do it. But like I say, it's all actually happening at the same time.
Okay, and that looks like a dead vampire.
Okay. Yeah, that will be enough to take it beyond 0 HP. However, obviously it will still get its attacks because we're going simultaneously. So I'm going to roll a d4, see what it's going to attack. 1, 2, so it's going for Lan.
Would the garlic make any difference for Lan?
Is Lan carrying garlic?
Yeah, she's the only one that's got garlic.
Okay.
I think.
In
Quentin's
which
got the other one.
case, I will ignore her from that, so it'll be you it's attacking instead, because it will be repelled by that, so it won't go near
I've
that.
got garlic too.
Oh, was it?
Oh.
Oh, was it Weimar? Was it? Sorry.
I think Weimar and Lan have got some garlic, to be fair.
Oh, right, I didn't know.
Yeah, so it's just Brock and Malcolm then, so it's Brock it's going for.
Oh,
Probably not like that roll.
no, not quite.
16, so no. So yeah, it flails at you again, and as it's sort of repelled from Weimar and Lan by the pungent garlic they're carrying, then Harp leaps in, stabs it cleanly through the chest with his sword of respect. The thing immediately dissolves into a faint cloud of mist, which is quite difficult to see in the dark. The mist sort of rolls back into the metal box, and the lid goes back onto the metal box.
I'm gonna try and prise it open.
Okay. It's not a matter of prizing it open, it's just have you got the strength to lift it, so make a strength check.
Can I help?
Yeah, make a strength check.
What's happening with the bats while this is going on, John?
They're still...
Are they coming?
They're still sort of getting nearer. However, as this creature disperses into mist, the bats seem to just start dispersing, they're no longer being drawn to your location.
Okay. I'm just going to go onto the cart and make sure Krosnon, sorry, is okay in case they do decide to come.
Yeah, he's fine. You can see he's basically loading a metal ball bearing into his flintlock and sort of getting it ready to cover you guys, or maybe throw it to one of you guys in case you need it. Okay, so the two of you throw the lid off this coffin, and inside this metal coffin you can see what appears to be this shapeless, amorphous cloud of mist, and very slowly it's becoming more solid, and after a few moments you can see the translucent outline of the creature as it's starting to reform itself.
So
What happens if I try and stab it?
Your sword just passes through the mist.
So I'll take the sun sword, reverse grip, and just hammer it into the middle of the outline.
Okay.
Nothing.
Yeah, doesn't do anything.
Oh, right. In
does
that
your
case, Malcolm, I've got 4 garlic. I'll take 1 garlic. I'll smash it as good as I can. Toss it in. Close the box.
Yeah, you grab this. Obviously, take the garlic off your carrot sheet.
Yeah.
You mash up this garlic. The juices are running down your hand as you quickly just pulp it with a mighty Lone Grove fist. You hurl it like some sort of fragrant grenade into the coffin, shaking off the garlic juices into the coffin. Then between you and Malcolm, you throw the lid back on it. At first, nothing happens. Then you sort of hear and you smell this sort of odd sort of sizzling, if you've burnt something in the oven, coming from inside the box. And you hear this high pitched sort of almost like the witch out of Wizard of Oz when she gets water thrown on her sort of scream coming from inside the box. And then it's yeah.
I've tossed myself over the lid.
The box is
Malcolm, put one leg on me.
Yeah, you all jump on it, and after a few minutes of the box stops moving, and this scream it's fades away into nothingness, and the box stops moving.
Okay, I'm gonna slide off now, and we're gonna try, Malcolm, stick the swords back in again. Whatever the mess is in there, we need to stab it.
Okay.
To make sure.
Okay, so
yeah, we're gonna open the grill, John.
yeah, between all of you guys, you heave the metal lid off again, and inside there is just a thin coating of powdery ash and some scorch marks. You can see the sort of blackened remnants of this garlic pulp that you'd thrown into the coffin, and sort of sitting at the head of this metallic coffin, it's just the skull missing the lower jaw, of this vampire with like its long fangs extended just at the top of its skull, this bleached white bone sort of shining out as the light's reflected off the snow around it.
Yeah, I'll be holding up the sun sword and looking at Malcolm. I was like, do you think it'll come back, or should I break the skull?
Definitely break the skull.
Yeah, so I'll just overhead.
Okay, as you lift the sword up, you're about to bring it down, and suddenly the skull like floats up into the air in front of you, and you see like pinpricks of like glowing red light coming from inside the dark abyss of the eye sockets of the skull. And even though it has no mouth or vocal cords with which to speak, a deep rumbling voice booms out from its direction. And after a few moments, you will realize that like you're actually hearing the voice in your mind. It's not like making a sound. And this deep rumbling voice says, "You've managed to kill my seneschal. Impressive."
Aside from the voice, are there any other effects? Do I have control of my body?
Yeah, it's not like paralyzed you.
I'll baseball bat it with the sun sword.
Yeah,
if I can.
the sun sword cleaves it in twain. The two halves of the skull like drop back into the metal box and like break into brittle fragments as they do. However, like the voice still coming from the same place, which is like the space where the skull was.
So I've already like started like reverse grip again. I'm gonna start like stabbing the fragments of the skull when I realize the voice is coming from the air, and I just stopped. And I was like, oh, it wasn't.
Yeah,
it wasn't the skull.
The deep voice continues, like, almost so it's not noticed that you're like
Yeah.
in the skull. The voice is just like, "Still, it is no matter."
I'm gonna if Rock is Anan and the rest are nearby, it's like, do you hear this as well?
Witchcraft in my head, I hear.
I was going to say, yeah, Brock, you're like bad mojo, like sensors are like doing overtime.
Yeah. And he'll be holding his head, trying to sort of get control of his mind.
And as the voice continues, it's difficult to describe how, but like you get the impression that like whatever's speaking is sort of like turned towards Malcolm, which is ridiculous because there's nothing there.
Yeah.
But you sort of get that like mental impression. And the voice says, "Why do you travel with these moon apes, Forest Cat, with their crude behavior? After all, you were our greatest achievement when we raised you from the ashes. Your race was raised highest of all. And yet you travel with these primitive apes."
My travel companions are none of your business, I say out loud.
Is it not the business of every parent to know what their children are doing?
If this is your seneschal, you are no parent of mine.
I'll wander over and just like take the garlic and like just press it into Malcolm's chest. Like, experimentally, just I don't know how this works.
Yeah, nothing happens, and apart from like Malcolm gets like a garlicky patch on his chest. The voice says, it almost like it sounds like a little bit amused. It's like, "That won't accomplish anything. I am not actually here. Physically, I am very far from you."
How far? In which direction? We'd love to come and visit.
"Oh, and you would be most welcome. Forest Cat in the White City to the north. Amongst the glittering peaks.
Ah.
If you seek to visit me, I would not stop you." And again, the voice sounds faintly amused. After all, given what I sacrificed for the younger races, it has been far too long since I've had any conversation with them. You would think a little bit of gratitude, but perhaps that is too much to expect.
Perhaps. How far north do we know this location?
Okay, let me just yoink myself onto the map so I can actually check.
Is this turned into a private sort of conversation?
No,
or
no,
is
you,
this...
you can all hear it.
Oh, we're still all hearing it, are we?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so the voice says, if you travel north for 4 days, you will reach the Shining Mountains. The White City and my throne lie within.
Okay.
I think at that point, Brock would be getting Lan onto the cart
Yeah, that's fine.
and preparing to turn this thing round and head home,
Yeah, that's fine.
and hoping the others will join him shortly.
At which point, mentally, you all get the idea that like, whatever is speaking to you has now turned towards Weimar, and it says, "And how are you finding wielding my old sword?"
Very difficult. I'm a yeoman by trade.
You are not a solar knight, then?
Well, sometimes. Listen, you have blood on your hands.
Surely amongst this group, even if that is the case, and I do not deny it, I am far from the only one.
There's differences in scale. And scales I'm looking to rebalance.
The scales of the younger races do not apply to one such as I.
I'll find more weights.
I would think that after all I did, that I would at least be owed a little. After all, did I not found the Order of Solar Knights to help protect your younger races? And was I not the first wielder of one of the God Blades that holds within it the light of the rising sun, the blade that you yourself now wield?
And what have you done recently?
Since I am confined to the White City, very little. I chose...
And your seneschal? Your little attack dogs?
Well, I am confined to the White City. That was the sacrifice I made for your kind. But they... well, they are not. Although they are very much lesser than myself.
Boredom, is it? And I'll like take a swipe at the air where the presence is. It's like, you do this out of boredom? And Weimar, while still exhausted, is working up a rage now. Shivering in the wind, swiping with the sword.
Not solely out of boredom, there are. My plans have been laid for over many years to this land of Valconan even though it now has a short summer, a break in the eon's long winter. It is a dead land, sparsely populated, but through the minds of my children, I am aware of other lands, far more richer lands across the seas. I would see myself free and move to those lands to found such a kingdom that would make the other ancients, were they still here, weep with envy.
You'll find a lot of nice there.
Good.
And competition when it comes to sucking blood out of people. Metaphorically. I'll take another swipe at the air.
I assure you there is nothing metaphorical about my plans. As I say, they've been laid across eons with many different moving parts. But to one such as myself, it is easy to manipulate simpler, lesser races. Easy to find a man dying in the cold and to cause him to cross paths with another of the god blades, knowing that it will consume his mind. Or, for instance, to ensure that an item of power falls into the clutches of a power-hungry man who believes it will make him mighty, a beast of legend, and will give him rulership of Valconan. Greedy
Why,
people.
though? Why any of this?
Because when my plans have come to fruition, I will be free to leave the White City. I will be free to travel across the seas to these richer lands. And there I will build my kingdom, and it will be an eternal kingdom.
I'll think at the sword. And I'll think at it. Can you hear this speech? And can you reach into the person behind it?
In your mind, the sword says, yes, I can hear it, but I'm only hearing an echo of it because I'm connected to you. I'm not hearing it myself. It's not, whoever this is, it's not trying to speak to me, and it's not speaking in a way I would normally be able to sense, but I can hear it because you can hear it.
Can you tell where it's coming from?
Well, as the creature is saying, it appears to be coming from the north, but a very long way away. If you wish, and I should warn you, this I have not attempted this before. There may be some danger. I can see if I can use my abilities to sense anything further about the speaker.
Oh, well, we are well beyond that now, so please.
Okay, roll me a d6.
Go. That's a 1.
Okay. So, for the rest of you guys, you see Weimar sort of like looking down at his sword, and you reckon you guys have seen him like mentally talk. You know what he's doing. You know he's like conversing mentally with the sun sword. So he sort of looks down. He's concentrating on it. Thank you. He's concentrating on it, and then the scenery around you seems to sort of go hazy, and it blurs around you, and then sort of it's not solid, but almost like a sort of hazy, transparent outline that's like overlaid on the scene around. You know, like almost like a hologram, to use like modern terms. You suddenly find yourself surrounded by this, almost like a throne room, but like the angles of all the architecture seem wrong. It's almost like a sort of halfway between like a medieval palace and like a sort of Aztec style stepped pyramid, but like every time you try and like work out, it's almost like an Escher painting. Every time you try and work out like how it all fits together, it's as though your mind can't fully conceive it. And at the far end of the room, like on this, what looks like a throne with like sort of encrusted with ice, there's like icicles hanging down it. There's like skulls carved into the throne. Sits this 8-foot tall figure. It has dark blue skin. It's wearing almost like Egyptian style clothing with like frost covering its skin and its face, its clothing. It's sort of like looking down like where you are. It's not moving its mouth. You can see it's got sort of odd like tattoos all over its face. It looks very much like some of the statues you guys have seen with like the blue pigment on of like the ancient ones. But it's got this weird sort of, it's like that sort of drawn, sort of hollow look to it. And it appears to be barely moving as it's sat there. It's like icicles like hanging off it as though it's been motionless for a countless amount of time. And it's literally like froze to the spot. And it's sort of like looking down directly like where you're standing in the middle of this mirage. Behind it, on the sort of wall behind the throne, you can see almost what appears to be like a crack, like a jagged tear in the wall, and just like beyond this crack is just like pure darkness, like so dark that like it just seems to absorb all the light around. The figure doesn't move as it sort of looks at you, and this hazy transparence of like illusion like shifts and flickers occasionally. And the voice says, "Well, that was unexpected." Like the figure doesn't move; it's just sat there almost like frozen.
Can we all see him, or just
Yeah,
Weimar?
you can all see it. It's like this illusion's been like overlaid on the like surroundings around you.
Do you have a name, Ancient?
When I walked among the younger races, my name was Brondralat, but to most now I am known as the King of Blood. I am the last of the ancients who remained behind for my love of the younger races when my race left this place. And so great was my love of them that when the ancient mages travelled to the White City to try and seal in what lay below the ice, I travelled with them. And in the end, as their magics failed and the presences from the dimensions beyond started to burst free, I sacrificed myself, knowing that the mages, once these presences were given form in me, would be able to bind me to the White City. At the time, it seemed just, and it seemed the right thing to do, but now I know it to be foolishness. Having seen what they did to accomplish their aims. But the reason I speak to you now, there is no need for us to be enemies after all. You seek to survive in Valkonen, and I seek to leave Valkonen. There is no reason we should be opposed.
I feel we are opposed on principle.
Ah, yes. Principles. Dangerous things.
Perhaps.
For instance, I have seen powerful, noble, mighty ancient mages, secure in their belief that they were doing the right thing to save their world, summon a great ice age which killed so many of the people they sought to save. And in pursuit of what they did, I have seen them drag a child, a prodigy they called it, forward and sacrifice this child to their hungry magics because they believed what they were doing was right. So anything they did in pursuit of it, no matter how grisly, no matter how bloody and barbaric, must also be right because it was in a good cause. But you say we are opposed on principle. Perhaps if you were to speed my release, I could leave Valconan all the more sooner, and my long plans, which unfortunately may result in harm to some, would no longer be necessary.
I feel that that would not be to the benefit of people in Rovaline.
And what do you care for them? After all, when the summer comes, if what you are thinking and what the people you have associated with think is true, will they not seek to come here and take what you have fought so hard to gain? And besides, surely better them than you.
I guess that is where we opposed on principle. The fate that you would bestow upon those people is far worse than they would bestow upon us, should things not go our way when the summer comes.
Ah, yes, the fate of life eternal, truly a terrible thing.
Mm.
But as I say, if I am terrible in your view, then it is because I am the product of terrible things done by people who believed they were right. People who would even bargain with the ancient she-lords of winter to achieve their great works, because they would be seen as saviours. They would be the resurrectors of their people. They would see Valconan safe, even if it meant destroying the vast majority of it and forcing the people to either cling to the ice like savage refugees or flee aboard ramshackle boats and rafts.
What do you know of the smoking mirror and the darkness they feared?
I know a great deal, after all. I was there
Mm-hmm.
when they came to the White City, and they built it, and they delved into the ice and the mountains, using their magics to call forth the very stones to build this great city. They found, I suppose you would call it, a thin place. A place where the walls that separate our world and the demonic chaos beyond is so thin that you could almost reach across it, and their magics had disturbed it. They realized too late that a great beast was being freed by their meddlings. They summoned us all, as they began their great workings. As I say, they bargained with the Prince of Winter, the Cold Prince. They dragged their prodigy forward, sacrificing the soul of an innocent to power their magics. And they bound that presence into me and confined me here, since they could not force it back, merely seal the hole. And you see sort of like its hand moves and it like almost creaks as though it hasn't moved for years, frost sort of falling off it, icicles clattering to the ground, and it extends a finger and like points at the crack in the wall behind it. And since that day have I been confined here.
And what will happen to the tin place when you leave the White City?
The breach is sealed. I suppose at least the Senna did that right, even though their ways of doing so were horrible and even caused me pause. But by then, the creature was free, and the only way they could bind it, since it was formless, was to confine it to a body that they could trap in the White City. And as the strongest soul amongst them, I was put forth as the vessel for this entity. And since then, we have both remained here.
Does the entity exist within you still?
Oh yes.
And what does the entity want to do?
The entity itself is formless, a demon of chaos. It is impulse. It wants for nothing. It is only when it simply acts without thought. However, when it is confined within a host, it bestows certain benefits. I suppose the best way I can describe it is when one of these entities is put into you, it carves out a piece of your soul which dies, and the creature pours itself into the hole and left behind, and you are as you were, and yet different. And over the years, I have discovered that there are ways I can pass on a small amount of this essence into lesser vessels, giving them a pale shadow of the power I possess, and a few trifles that the younger races crave: immortality, strength, beauty, the ability to fascinate others, such trifles that men desire. And because they are lesser, they are not confined as I am, and at my bidding they can slip out into the night unseen and work my will.
It seems the entity has corrupted your soul.
It's a very crude way of putting it, but I would say more the entity now is my soul. I'm sure perhaps if you spoke to your friend Cotton Nickel, he could perhaps explain it better. Although you'll be, and again, it's sort of like, even though the figure doesn't move, like, only just like lowering its hand, you get the thing, it like turns towards like Weimar and Brock, and it says, although, if it pleases you, you may know that he was as good as his word, and he has travelled very, very far from your village as the last guttering candle flame of his mortal soul guttered and died, he cast himself far away, hoping that he would be of no danger to your new sealer land. But as I've said, if you wish to come and visit me in the White City, of course I would be happy to extend hospitality to you all. Although I should warn you that although the breach is sealed, they have a way of twisting the space and the area around them. To the unprepared mind, the effect can be unsettling. Of course, if you were to, I don't for one moment think you will accept this, but if you were to wish a place in my new kingdom, I'm sure one could be made for you.
We have our own kingdom. Thank you very much.
Oh yes, I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
But even though your one-legged companion is crude, there must be something of worth within him, or the Godblade would not have chosen and allowed him to wield it.
Well, I suppose that's something that you also have, if this is your sword.
Indeed, I was the first chosen to wield it when it was shattered from the other two blades. Back in the days when I believed that your younger races might rise above the crude beasts that we raised you from.
Well, I suppose we'll have something to talk about if we ever meet. Compare notes.
Indeed.
In the meantime,
There is
because
only,
you've all but said it, if it's going to talk, I'll shut up.
says, there, aside from my freedom, there is only one other thing I seek, and that is someone strong enough in mind and magical prowess to house the Empress of Blood. After all, does not every king need a queen? Someone strong and powerful, maybe perhaps a mother missing their child.
Are you not a little bit beyond these concerns? Are you still base enough in your deranged grandeur to desire such a thing?
Not in the manner in which you so amusingly portray it, but my existence thus far has been a lonely one, and my children, whilst they are useful, they are not my equals. If I were to rule a kingdom, I would seek to have an equal. and opposite with me. Immortality can be dreadfully tedious when one is the only immortal. Unless you, of course, you count those immortals that masquerade as deities, which I do not.
You have mentioned the other sword.
Ah, yes. The green blade and the night sword.
You've put the night sword into the hands of someone we know.
I simply arranged for a man who was beaten, robbed, was dying in the snow, none of which I caused. I merely took advantage of that to cause this desperate, dying man to cross paths with the night blade, knowing that in his desperate state he would seek to wield it.
Oh yes, it's mighty noble of you to only curse the mugged man.
I never claimed to be noble.
Well, I suppose that is the burden of emperors. Nothing noble comes out of such titles.
Perhaps.
What conceivable use is this man?
As I have said, when I seek to found my kingdom, as well as an equal to myself, I will require lieutenants, soldiers, all of the things that a kingdom normally requires. And this person, now wielding the night blade, as they call on it more, they will grow more powerful. And as is the case with your races, the more powerful they become, the more power they will desire. And at a certain point, when he can go no further, he will turn to me to bring him over into my world, and I will reach out my hand and embrace him as a brother, and he will become more powerful and lead my armies to sweep aside those who would oppose my new kingdom.
Similar plans for me?
Perhaps. What I need: soldiers, people who obey my will without question, I can have in abundance. But people of true power, capable of acting on their own initiative for the good of the kingdom, and people capable of wielding such power, are few and far between. But I will need such people to found a kingdom. For all my power, I cannot be everywhere at once. Rather like the immortals that your elven friend mistakenly worships, I am not a god.
I think the distinction might be a little too fine for us to see from down here.
I could see how that would be the case, but there is only one God, and there has only ever been one God, and he was broken so long ago.
Why talk to us at all? You already arranged, I presume, or at least claim to be, behind the discovery of the Sun Sword. The fact that we are here, you drew us here with one of your minions.
I My apologies, but I must correct you. I had no part to play in your finding of the Sun Sword. I manipulated events concerning the Nightblade, but for obvious reasons, the Sun Sword is somewhat beyond my remit.
Again, your plans are moving. Why draw us here? Why talk?
Originally, because your elven friend crossed paths with some of my children, and I was curious. Back when we first raised his people from beasts, we raised them higher than any other, and I was always fond of the forest cats. So I thought to bring him north to see what had become of them. I am aware of the pale, pathetic shadows of elves that linger in Valconen, but I was curious to see how their bloodline had been preserved in your people. But since you have prevented that, and I am not going to spend a great deal of resources on idle curiosity, and given that you had proven your mettle, I suppose you would say, by slaying my seneschal, I thought, and I already had that link established, I thought, why not talk to you as directly as I could? What harm would it do?
I'm going to be looking at Malcolm.
I will. I guess put my sword away and just kind of look at where I think he is and say, look to our coming in the new year when the weather improves, and perhaps we will end your tedium.
Everything is possible, though I think it unlikely. But nevertheless, I will look forward to your visit. And as he says that, the sort of illusion starts to flicker, and as it sort of fades away, you hear like the last sentence he says as it sort of fades away and disappears along with the illusion. Oh yes, I will look forward to your visit. And then the illusion fades along with his voice.
I'll take a final swipe at the air with the sun sword.
You take a final swipe at the air, and again, just as it's sort of like as the last wisps of it are dissipating, you just hear like a faint sort of hollow, like mocking laughter as it disappears.
Okay, maybe it's not looking anymore. I need to sit down. I will over to the cart and just. Oh.
At which point, Lan, who like, because you've all seen this, Lan is like, obviously, I can see you guys have got some stuff going on, but would it be out of turn to say, get on the fucking cart? And Crosland's like, oh, God, yes, let's get away from this devilish place.
Here.
Yeah, Brock's already on the cart and he's sort of rocking at the moment with his hands on his head, trying to get this weird talking out of his head, and he's a bit lost. Yeah.
Really bad time for Brock and Lan probably as well.
Yeah, and you all jump on the cart. Obviously, you're in the middle of the white wastes, the great glacier. Okay, what do you guys want to do?
Do we know anything about the mirrored peaks?
You know they're supposedly called the mirrored peaks because they're sort of like frozen solid due to like where they are. So like when the sun shines on them, it like refracts through ice crystals and like the snow that clings to the peaks. So on like really sunny days, like the peaks almost seem to like glow at the very tips because they're sort of so cold and the sunlight refracts through the mountains and the ice formations.
So I wonder if you want to head for the mountains and try and find somewhere to lay low for a number of days to try and get some recovery.
This is just glacier wasteland, isn't it? This is just like, yeah. I was thinking we need to hold up somewhere for at least a couple of days, when we can find enough shelter. That is.
And the mountains may provide shelter for us.
You also know, and I'll tell you this because you like passed it earlier, you'll know you're not far from Leng.
The ancient.
Oh, is that plateau on the same level as?
No, it's like a little bit lower than the glacier, but you know that when you last visited Leng, they said they like hunted on the glacier, so
Okay.
like presumably there is a way up and hence down. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to get up there.
We upset them badly the last time.
I thought we ended on good terms.
One of them was a bit upset when you went there because like the previous elder like savoured.
Oh, that was
sort of-
Zor.
Yeah, he'd basically seen that like, oh, I'm gonna like pass away of like natural causes like shortly after your visit. So his daughter was like, oh, you come in here, you're like, my father's gonna die. But he was just like, oh, I'm dying of natural causes. It's just the way. I just know it's gonna happen. That's the only difference. So he was fine with it.
How far are the mountains from us? Is that?
It's like 4 days to the north.
Oh, sorry, the south, the mirrored peaks.
Oh, the mirrored peaks to the south. They're about 2-3 days to the south.
Okay, so either way, we have to sleep before then.
Yeah.
So I guess we just want to. It's just turn nighttime, right?
Yeah.
So we probably want to head south for 2 hours and then find somewhere to stop and camp and give the ponies a break and have Brock and Weimar catch up on some sleep.
Okay. Yeah, that's not a problem. Obviously, I'll cross off a ration. Since you're now like you're able to rest up now. Obviously, you've got tents and shit like that in the cart, so that's fine. It's not the most comfortable night's sleep you've had because, like I said, we're getting into like the bitter cold winter now, and you're on a glacier. But it's better than like in a rumbling ass cart. So you will all be able to gain D3 hit points back. Any of you have got exhaustion levels, you can lower them by 1. And you, I'm going to make
Land.
Let's have a quick roll to
Let me
see if
get
anything
one
happens
back.
during the evening.
And I take it, Rob, you're sort of up to speed with what's happened in the last sort of couple of sessions with regards to the gateway and the meeting at the tower and stuff.
Yeah, I read up the summaries.
Okay, so the night passes fairly uneventfully, though it's bitterly cold. The next morning when you wake up, the sunlight is streaming over the horizon, so causing this brilliant white stark landscape to be illuminated in all its deserted glory around you. Are you guys continuing south?
Yeah, I think we're. So, how far away are we from the deep winter?
A week.
Okay, and are we still planning on going to the Dolmen Wood for the green sword for in the deep winter?
Well, I think it's getting more and more the case that this other sword is out there potentially like gaining an army or followers
Yeah,
or something. I think having two swords against all the bad stuff that's happening seems to be definitely the way forward. That's however much Brock hates the idea of going through some weird mystical portal or whatever gateway thing. He sees that is potentially the only way forward to give us another upper hand against all the evil, magic and
because we could
witchcraft.
just, rest as we travel and get to the gateway and then pass through and spend some time there looking for the sword while, there's very little we can do in Valconin in the deep winter.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think that's about the only option, really.
yeah.
Right, okay. So obviously you guys know the location of the portal that you've discovered, the gateway. You know roughly where you are based on the fact you can see Leng, you know where that is. Right? So you roughly work out it's going to take about 7 days to get to like the part of the forest where you discovered the gate previously. And obviously you, Brock and Weimar and obviously Lan, you know that when you left there, Quentin like marked the trees like quite deeply so you could like follow a trail of markings to make sure you didn't get lost and you could get back to where the gateway was. So once you hit the woods, you're golden for finding the gateway. But obviously it's up to you guys what you want to do.
Well, otherwise we're going to be sort of locked up in town for like 2 months.
So is the plan to head to the gateway, guys?
That would be my vote.
Yeah, mine too, unless one more feels.
Yeah, no, sure. It's one of the green blade is one of the few sort of edges
Positives.
that we can
Yeah.
strive for relatively free of interference. We don't know what's gonna be there, but
I suppose the advantage you've got, given that you now know there's like this king of blood like establishing all his plans and whatever, it's a reasonably safe bet if you're like, oh, this wood, this forest is in like a different dimension. Maybe he's like not messing with things there because it's in like a different dimension and he can't leave the castle. So
yeah, maybe it's at least not going to be vampires.
yeah. Okay, so you guys traveling to the gate, you travel southwards, you come back down off the glacier into the wolf forest. Obviously it's 7 days, so it'll be 7 rations for each of you. That's 4 of you. I'm assuming Krosnon's got like his own stuff going on, but it'll be the 3 of you and Lan. Obviously you can basically just roll like 7d3 and that's how many hit points you get back. Anyone who's got exhaustion, that'll be gone because of like the 7 days travel. And we are now on to the first of deep winter. Which also means you've got to pay your hirelings.
And I guess on the plus side, there's very few of them left, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's only like Quelac and like 2 of the light footmen left. So let's see, it's 1,504.
Right. That's not a problem because we have Any shit total.
Okay, just let me close all these monster stat things I've got open. And if I'll come back on there. Okay, so you guys head into the wolf forest, and following the deep marks that Quentin has left on the trees, you soon find yourself drawing near to a large stone gateway set amidst fallen trees and the winter snow. And as I relate, obviously I'll relate this again for Malcolm's benefit. As you get near to this stone gate, the area around it is a few degrees warmer than the rest of the area, so like the snow's like melted near it. There's a couple of stone pillars with bits of like blue pigment still clinging to them on either side of the gate. And then just before the gate there's like this now frozen patch of what looks like blood. And obviously Brock and Weimar can tell you that when they previously came here, they established that there was actually like sort of tree sap mixed in with the blood. And if I just bring up my notes on this,
I believe Quentin deciphered the message as well, didn't he?
yeah, there's basically a message sort of like carved in sort of an old language above the gateway, which says, you know, in order to enter, you've got to sort of combine your blood with the blood of the forest and sort of like make your pledge to it, and sort of with the presence of this pool of blood with like tree sap mixed in it. And they found some like deep scratches on trees in the area. They arrived at the idea, obviously they've not tested it, but they arrived at the idea that, you know, you have to like shed blood like mixed with tree sap to like activate this portal or this gateway.
Okay. So I guess I'll get some sap.
Yeah.
And how much blood did it look like was used the last time? Like,
It's just like a little pool. I mean,
okay.
to put it in game terms, we're talking like a hit point's worth.
Okay.
Like, you don't have to like sever an artery or anything.
Yeah. That's more Weimar's back.
Let's try and
Why am I
leave that as the last option.
soaring off his other leg?
Yeah, I kind of need my other leg.
You don't need both your legs.
They don't need those.
So I'll do a little cut on my arm.
Okay.
I'll mix the blood with the sap. And then is it like an archway?
Yeah, it's like a stone archway just to like the left of where the pool of blood is.
Okay, and then so I guess it's an archway that you can walk through today.
Yes.
It's not. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, although there's literally like nothing beyond it at the moment. It's just like a stone archway.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, and is there like symbols on it that I can rub the blood along?
There's the writing, like I say, you know, can make your pledge to the forest and join your blood with that to the forest. But like the blood that you can see just appears to have been like dropped like in the archway, like in the centre of it.
Okay. So I'll try and rub the writing first, and then I'll drop what's left in the archway.
Okay, nothing happens when you rub blood on the words, but like they do feel like vaguely warm to the touch. And then as you sort of like drop the blood in the archway, almost like a sort of invisible like pulse goes through the air. The two blue stone pillars on either side of the archway light up, and what appear to be like bluey green arcs of energy flash from those two pillars into the gateway, and it's sort of like it's like a blinding light for a few moments, and then as the light sort of fades away beyond it, where previously it was just the expanse of the frozen wolf forest, you can now see what looks to be a balmy summer deciduous forest, like a few sort of leaves gently falling down, sunlight shining down.
Is it wide enough or big enough for us to bring our cart through?
No.
No. Okay. And all we can see on the far side is forest, is it?
Yeah. And can you roll me a d3, please?
Okay. 2.
Okay, that's fun. So yeah, looking through, you can see this balmy, like almost summery looking, maybe slightly autumnal sort of forest, a few sort of like brown and golden leaves like falling down.
Okay, so I guess we pack up as much of the equipment as we can carry on our back and send Crosnan with our cart and the ponies back to New Zealand.
Yep.
4 of us can step through.
Suddenly, the arcs of electricity from the pillars just like stop. There's a flickering, and the image of the balmy forest in the gateway disappears, and you can now just see the wolf forest beyond it. I'm not going to change the map again, but
Okay. Perhaps we'll be quicker next time. And I guess I'll get my gear with St. Crosnan on his way, and I'll step up and open it again.
Crosnan's like, do you just want me to head back to New Zealand, or?
Yes, please.
Okay, well, if you're sure, I've got to admit, I don't really feel right about leaving you fellows to go through whatever devilry this is.
I guess this is the way our path must travel.
We don't know how long we're going to be, and if you stay out here any longer, you're going to freeze to death. So you need to make your way back with haste.
Okay. I understand. He shakes all of your hands, and then he says, the ancestors willing, hopefully I'll see you again soon, back in New Zealand. He gets on the cart, gives you all like a final wave with him. He's like, yeah, go on you. And the cart starts like trundling off through the trees.
Okay, so I guess once we have all our stuff ready to go, I'll do the blood and sap trick again.
Okay, so that's another hit point.
Okay.
And roll me a d3.
1.
Okay, so the same thing happens. Arcs of electricity from the two blue columns into the gateway. Big flash. As it fades again, you can see this sort of summery, autumnal looking forest beyond it.
Okay, and I guess I'll step straight through as soon as it opens.
Okay, no problem. You step straight through. What about yourself, Weimar and Bro?
Yeah, I'll follow through.
Okay, Weimar goes through.
Yeah, I'm going to be hesitant as expected. Can I see him walk through? And can I see him on the other side?
You do see him walk through on the other side. However, as you're watching them, again the light fades from the two columns and the gate closes.
Okay.
Leaving just Brock and Lan stood on the Valconan side of it.
And I look at her and I say, we have no choice. This is our future.
She puts a comforting hand on your shoulder and she says, well, as I told you back in New Zealand, where you go, I go.
So I'll do the same. I'll follow the same process from before. I'll collect some fat. I'll sort of cut my hand.
Yep, so
mix it.
1d hit point knocked off.
Yep.
And roll me a d3.
And let me roll that first. 8 A 2.
Okay. So the same process repeats itself, and you can now see the other side of the portal. You can see Weimar and Harp on the other side.
Okay. So I'll grab her hand tightly, like squeezing it quite firmly, and she can probably notice that I'm sort of shaking, but
Yep.
we'll sort of both step through at the same time.
Okay. And indeed, you both step through the portal into the woodland beyond. I'm going to try and bring up this map. Hopefully it won't take too long to load. There we go. I'm hoping you can all see that, or you will be able to shortly.
It's not come up yet.
Yeah, I have it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's come up. Yeah.
Okay, so we turn some of this these ambient sounds down a little bit. Okay, so as you step through into this lovely autumnal forest, like a few leaves falling around you as I've described, you stumble out of what appears to be like a gateway on this side. However, unlike the stone gate on the Valkonen side, this one seems to be made of almost like trees that are sort of like grown together to form this gate as part of the forest. And as you're looking at it, you see like the lower portions of this gate, they appear to have been like into the wood, like people have like carved their like initials onto it, and there's like loads of different like initials carved in it. Some of them look really old, they're like the trees like healed over them a bit. Some of them look more recent, and above this like graffiti, I suppose you would call it, there are very sort of lifelike, but in a sort of like cartoony way, you know, almost like the theatre, like comedy tragedy mask style. There are these wooden faces carved into the upper portions of the trunks that make this gateway. And as you're all sort of stumbling out of this gate, sort of looking around at like the bright light streaming through the trees, and immediately you notice like the temperature is warm in here, because you're all like wearing like winter furs, and it's like warm summer in here. So like, immediately as you go through, for a few seconds you've brought a bit of cold air with you through the portal, but once that fades and the portal closes behind you, you're like and as you're I mean, it's up to you. I mean, you can keep your fur clothes on. You're not going to spontaneously combust or anything like that, but it is very warm. And as you're sort of looking around at this sort of seemingly beatific forest around you, you hear like a creaking from the gateway, and as you sort of look up at the gate, you see a number of these wooden faces that are carved into the upper limbs of these trees that form the gate begin moving, and one of them, in a almost cheery voice really, says, "Good day to you, travellers, and welcome to the Dolmen Wood."
Thank you very much.
"Not at all. How does this day find you, Sir Montan, Sir Lone Grove, Sir Harp, and Lady Rivar?"
It finds us well,
"Splendid.
if a little
splendid.
lost."
"Ah, well, there are many paths through the Dolmen Wood."
There are. Where might we find accommodation and equipment? Perhaps a pony or two?
The face merely smiles. It doesn't respond.
Okay. Does it look like an obvious way to open the gate again?
Not that you can see. There's no instructions on this side.
Okay.
The fact it seems to know our names would make me think that you've got to put your initials in it. would accept that, but that's a guess.
So while Brock's not looking, I'll nudge Weimar and indicate his sword and say, does our friend know where the green sword might be, or can he sense it now that we're in the same location?
So I'll think at the sword without drawing it. We've come through the portal. Do you know where one of your sibling blades is?
The sword, like, you know, it's heard you, and it appears to be like pausing for a bit, almost in thought, and then in your mind, like the sort of normally rambunctious voice of the sword, though slightly muted now, says, "Well, it's strange, but I can sense I can sense the magic of the green blade, but it's all around us. It's like it's permeating the very air."
I'll lean to Malcolm and I'll whisper. I think the whatever gifts the green blade has have permeated this entire place. I don't know what that means for our search, though.
Okay.
Obviously, as this is going on, obviously you guys are sort of taking stock of your surroundings and stuff like that. As you sort of look around, you appear to be on like a sort of it's not like a road, but it's like a well-travelled like path through the forest. You know, like you can see that it's sort of like flattened, like compacted dirt. Obviously it's been used quite a lot. And as you sort of look to the southeast, sort of like along it in the distance, maybe like a day and a half away, as you look into sort of like the southeast following this path, you can see what appears to be a sort of gently rising at first, then more steeply sort of hill to the southeast, and on top of it appears to be a fortified stone castle.
Well, maybe that's where we start our search.
Yeah, at the very least there will be equipment there.
Yeah.
We
Guess
need
we
some
just have to hope
other-
they're friendly. I wonder, is there I guess I wonder, should we find more information about who owns the castle before we walk into it?
Well, should we lurk on the outskirts and see who comes and goes?
Yeah, maybe there'll be villagers outside the castle or people working farms.
Yeah, let us try and find someone to find the lay of the land and what local politics we might be walking into. So then I
Okay.
guess we'll follow the path southeast towards the castle, looking for a tour guide of sorts.
Okay,
And
so you travel southeast for a day. Obviously, again, that's a ration for each of you, unless you do like hunting or anything like that.
Well, I guess if we're just passing through, we could kind of walk a little bit slower and do a bit of hunting.
Yeah, that's fine. Make you roll for hunting.
if we're going to do that, I shall use my special spear.
Okay, in which case, before you roll, let me have a look at the rules for your spear, because I know it has some special rules related to this.
Yeah, so 1 in only fails on a 1 in 12, it says.
Yeah, hunting rolls for the wielder only fail when rolling a 1 on a d12. So yeah, so if you want to make a hunting roll, Brock, anything but a 1 and you're golden. You are not golden. Okay, so
Amazing. I had one chance to fail on a 6, and you had one chance to fail on a 12, and we both failed.
Yeah. I'm not sure we should be hunting in these woods.
It's
Okay,
a sign.
So it's not that there's no game in the woods. I mean, it's like a deciduous forest. There's plenty of game about. However, it does appear to be quite skittish. Obviously, you guys as well. You've sort of got used to like hunting in like the Arctic wilderness and the terrain and everything around there. You're not really used to like hunting in these balmy, like warm forests, especially when you're like weighed down with furs and everything. So you think you're sort of slowly getting the measure of it, and you're like, oh yeah, we're gonna have to adjust our tactics if we like want to hunt successfully here. But for the meantime, you've not managed to find anything while you're hunting. You've seen animals, but you've not managed to like get your hands on any of them, basically.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So yeah, be a ration for each of you, and anyone who is injured can regain D3 hit points. Alright. And I'm just going to quickly nip to the facility, so if you guys want to chat about what you want to do when you get to this castle, I'll be back with you very shortly.
I might just take a quick break as well.
Yeah, so I guess we just got to find out what the lay of the land is, really, because
Yeah,
we've got
this is
no
someone-
idea.
Yeah, someone local with information, I think.
Because we've only really got one sole purpose at the moment, but that could change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, depending on what the people at the castle are like, what they're about.
Because- Yeah, because didn't they say that they basically sent the whole of the forest into this sort of other world or dimension or whatever you want to call it
Mm.
back in the day, the center? So who knows what's here?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what kind of. It's almost kind of like a parallel civilization at this point.
Yeah,
It diverged so far in the past.
yeah, and what? Yeah, whether it is in the past or whether it. Yeah, it's strange. Can we remember, John, when they talked about the Senna sort of? Well, I think it was the Senna sending this forest through.
It was an offshoot of the Senna called the Droon, who apparently did this. Basically, when the Senna all got together and they were like, "Oh look, shit's going down below the ice. We need to like do something. The only hope we've got is to like call down this ice age." The Droon were like, "Nah, that's a rubbish idea." But they effectively got outvoted. So because they knew like they couldn't do anything, they were like, "Right, well they're going to go ahead and do this, and it's going to wreck everything. So we're not going to persuade them otherwise. There's not enough of us to like take it by force and like stop them. So what we're going to do is we're going to concentrate on making ourselves like a little sort of like pocket realm, I suppose, where we can basically weather out the worst of this like ice age." And you came across the
mushroom dwarf guys
near where the like the moss dwarves were. There was
dwarves.
like that small sort of like magically temperature controlled house near there, where like one of the Droon had basically used that to like test out some of like the little spells that were going to go towards the big spell.
So is that who was in the forest? We thought the Droon. Is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
That's who we're expecting to sort of find potentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, the only other thing you guys really know about it is effectively there used to be this big forest that was in Valconan, and whatever magic the Droon did basically like yoinked it away into like a little like pocket realm where apparently like the weather's much better and it's like summer. Like, there's not even a faint trace of like winter here at all. As to whether there were like other people in the forest when they did this and what happened to them, did they come across, you don't know. I mean, you might assume so given the fact there's like a big castle you're heading towards, but
And have we got a rough sort of timeline when this happened? How long ago it was? Was it hundreds of years ago? or?
yeah, it was sort of like, well, the date you're on now is like 1,200 and something, like 1,286 AE, which is like after the Exodus, when your forebears travelled south to escape the Ice Age, and obviously
Yep.
the Droon did this before
Around the
like
same.
around about the same time as the Ice Age, so it's at
Ah.
least 1,000 years.
All right, so plenty. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I guess again, while Brock and Rivar are distracted, I'll kind of nudge Weimar again, and Weimar getting a sore arm from all the nudging. But might be a place to try and find some magical expertise.
The castle.
Yeah, or the land generally. I feel like this. Everyone else knows what's going on, and we just stumble from magical problem to magical problem. And yeah, it might be perhaps useful if we could.
I do agree. We ought to retain the services of a wizard. I think long term that would be good. Though I hesitate with regards to the cost, because we currently employ a sage that is not a wizard, and it is very, very expensive.
It is, but we have an awful lot of pirate money. So really, I think we can afford to pay a wizard for a few months.
That's true. You did make bank when you took out them pirates.
Yeah.
No, but we should either recruit one for the cause or purchase the services of one.
Recruitment is cheaper.
It is.
But we may get a higher quality of candidate if we hire.
At any rate, moving them from here to elsewhere, I suppose, that might be a problem in its own right.
Yeah, well, if we find the right one for the right price, and they could always return in time.
Okay, so obviously you guys are talking about this as you're travelling towards this castle. As you get nearer, you can see that what at first you as you're heading up the hill, what at first you took to be a simple castle is actually like a castle and a keep with like a wall around it, and so between that is like a fairly big town, like little buildings dotted amongst it, and there's like a wall around the whole lot.
Right, so there's a wall around the outside, then a town, then a wall, then the keep. Is that kind of it?
Well, there's not like a central wall. It's just like one big wall around the outside, and then the town, the castle, and the keep inside.
Okay, sorry. Okay, yeah.
No problems. As you're I'll set up a map so you can not see all of this for next time. As you're because you're coming in from like the northwest, so to speak. As you're heading towards it, you can see facing you and built into the wall is what appears to be a large, very strange looking building. It's a gate, you can see that, but it's like the outside of the gate has been carved to resemble like a large gaping like draconic mouth, and you can see like a number of what you assume to be guards, like humans, stood there wearing like chainmail, tabard, spears, tin helmets.
Okay. So I guess we'll approach Bolus Brass like we own the place.
Yeah, no problem. You walk up. There's 4 guards there. They don't appear to be surprised by someone approaching the gate. They just watch you as approach. They don't challenge you or anything like that. They obviously look at you as you're approaching, but you get the feeling that like a lot of people probably come in through this gate. So they're not like, who are you? What are you doing here? They're just like watching you approach. I mean, you're not coming up with like weapons drawn or attacking the city or whatever. So they're just like, oh yeah, travelers like coming to the gate. Well, yeah.
Okay. So since they're kind of friendly and not antagonistic, as we're walking past, I'll just kind of nod at one and say, can you recommend somewhere to stay?
He says, oh, you need some lodgings, do you?
Yes.
He says, oh yeah, not a problem. He's like, look, he points southwards. He's like, look, follow the bracken mold walls. Keep following it round. Eventually, you'll see quite a big building. Now, don't get me wrong, it looks a little bit grotty, tar planking a lot, but don't worry about that. Looks can be a bit deceptive, but you'll recognise it. It's got like a big metal weathercock on its roof. That's the Poppycock Inn. He says, yeah, you'll find lodgings there.
Okay. Cool. Thank you very much.
No problems.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
And you stay safe. He says, oh, by the way, he says, just be a bit careful if you're travelling hereabouts. We've had a few reports that the old beastmen are acting up again. He says, so just be on the lookout. He's like, I'm sure they won't come this near to Brackenwald Castle, but just be on the safe side. Just keep a lookout.
Okay, beastmen, you say?
Oh yeah. He says, the old twisted horns. They get a bit riled up every now and again. Like I said, they don't normally come towards Brackenwald. I mean, we can see them from miles away up on this hill, so they don't normally give us any trouble. But if you'll forgive me for saying so, and obviously he's looking at you guys in your furs, he's like, you don't really look like you're from around these parts, so just thought I'd give you a word to the wise. Just be like on the lookout.
No, very much appreciated. Also, is there any laws within the town that we need to be aware of? Wouldn't want to run afoul of your good selves.
He says, yeah, obviously there's the normal laws, don't go waving weapons around, don't go causing harm to the citizens of Brackenwald, no stealing, no looting, the normal stuff. Is that nothing, aside from the usual, nothing untoward? He said, as long as you don't go around causing trouble, you'll be fine.
Okay. And I guess if we're looking for more suitable attire, could you recommend an establishment that might sell what we need for the distinguished gentleman?
He says, well, there's plenty of places you could go to get yourself some clothes and supplies in the town. Yeah, just wander down any of the streets. You'll find shops that can supply what you want. That's not a problem. We get quite a few travellers stopping on there. Obviously, people don't go to the actual castle and the keep unless they've been invited up there for official purposes. But for the rest of the town, there's merchants, there's people selling their wares. Like I said, we get plenty of travellers stopping off on Brackenwald due to us being on this main thoroughfare here. So yeah, I'm sure you'll find what you need.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, if you're looking to see the sights of Brackenwald, he jerks his thumb at the gate. Now, I believe the Chapel of St Ignace, they're holding a big service in the next couple of days. That's always an interesting sight. Obviously, if you're looking for supplies, there's a grand market. Also, if you want to take in the sights, there's a Fool's Row. It's this big stone, I suppose plaza you'd call it, and it's got all these statues of fabled heroes and local folk heroes and stuff like that. So it's a little bit touristy now, but people seem to like it. So
indeed. And what can you tell me of Lord Brackenwald? Is it
Lord Brackenwald? He's like, well, what do you want to know? I mean, obviously, I don't really hang around with him a great deal, and he sort of laughs at his own joke. Being a humble guard like myself, but he's like, well, what do you want to know?
Is he a duke, baron?
He's like, well, he's a duke, yeah.
Okay, and how much of the land around the castle does he control?
He says, well, that's a bit of a difficult question because technically lots of it, but how much does he actually and he's like, obviously you didn't hear this from me, but he's like, how much does he actually control? Well, it's only what you can really sort of like keep your hands on, really. So it's only really the immediate area around the castle and the hill, really. Although technically most of the civilized places hereabouts are fealty to like the Duke of Brackenwold, so it just depends how you classify control, really.
Okay. And is he the only Duke?
No. There's other dukes.
Okay. And is there a king and queen?
He says, no, we don't have a king and queen. It's mostly just the dukes who are like in charge of things. But the titles always seem to be like changing. I mean, sometimes you get, if you get like a duke who doesn't fancy being called the duke, they might adopt another title. But they're all of a similar sort of level, if you know what I mean. I mean, not that it really matters for us. Common folk, we just sort of like do what we're told and we get on with our jobs and try and keep our noses clean. But there's plenty of dukes around. But like I say, the titles sometimes differ a little bit.
Okay. Interesting. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Oh, no problem.
We will go and try and find a poppycock.
As well, have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
And he leaves you to go about your business.
And they were all humans, I take it.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, John. Can I ask him, before I go,
Yeah?
is there goblins nearby?
He says, well, not that I'm aware.
Ah, okay. Okay. Interesting. Well, thank you very much, and we'll be about our business.
No problems.
So I guess we follow the what time is it a day? Do we have a sense?
It seems to be sort of about noonish.
Okay. So I suggest we find a place to stay and drop off our gear and examine the town. Perhaps a beverage or two.
Yes, get settled.
Yes.
Eat something that isn't rations.
Yes.
Okay, so you all follow the wall of the city southwards, and eventually you reach an area where, sort of like a bit further along the wall, you can see what appears to be a large stone gate with like a statue of like an angel on each side of it, and there's a number of guards stood next to it. But before you get to there, just a short distance outside the town walls proper, is this dishevelled, like ramshackle looking building, like tarred planking on the roof, and this sort of slightly this metal weathercock at a slightly jaunty angle on the roof. There's a sign sort of creaking in the gentle breeze outside, and it shows a busty maiden wrestling a rooster.
Okay. This looks like the place. And sorry, John, are we inside the city walls or?
You're outside at the minute, but you can see like this other gateway, and then there's this inn, this Poppycock Inn, which is just outside the walls.
Okay, and then where were the first guards? They were.
The first guards were like at another gate, sort of like further around the wall to the north. And you've just like
so
followed the outside of the wall.
Okay. Cool. So I guess we'll just walk into the inn and see what it looks like on the inside.
Okay, the door opens, and it looks a bit rustic. It's not going to like win any like Michelin stars or anything like that, but it looks all right. As the door opens, the sound of like chatting and people like talking and chinking tankards inside, and it appears to be like mostly like farmers, maybe like the odd like trader and like townsfolk inside, or like drinking, having a bit to eat, stuff like that. You can see there's like bundles of like herbs hanging from like the thick wooden beams on the roofs. it's all, like I say, very rustic. You know, people are drinking out of like sort of clay tankards and like pewter tankards. The tables are all basic wood. There's like a sort of bar area setup, which is a little more than like a couple of tables, you know, with like some, you presume, like kegs of various beer and whatever behind it. There's a thin, wiry looking woman who is like stood behind this bar area, like chatting to one of the farmers. She's quite thin, got quite sort of like stringy hair, and she has a patch over one of her eyes. And she's just like laughing and like joking with with you presume one of her regulars as she turns around to one of these kegs, like pours him some like foaming ale or whatever into it and like passes it over to him. You see him like throw like a couple of like silver coins onto the table, and she like scoops them up.
Okay. So I guess the three of us will approach the bar, and when we get her attention,
she comes walking over and she's like, "Oh, what can old Gil get you?"
4 ales and 3 rooms.
She's like, "Yeah, that'll come to her." About 5 gold coins should do it. I don't want to undersell it, but don't be expecting anything special from the room. They're fairly bare bones, you know. But they'll do you. We've got soft straw mattresses, you know. It'd be nice and warm in there. You'll be fine. We've got blankets. You'll be grand.
Okay, and the 5 gold coins is lodgings for the week.
She says, "Yeah, I'll sort your lodgings out." She says, and she sort of laughs a bit and says, "Oh, if you're lucky, I might even throw a bit of morning breakfast in you. Nothing special, just like a bit of fish, you know, the usual."
Okay. So I guess I'll give her 5 gold coins, and
Yep. She sweeps them off, and then she sort of like looks beyond you into the main sort of like tavern area, and she's like, "So Harold," and she like clicks her fingers, and you see like a young lad with like sort of like fuzzy like red hair comes walking over, and he's like, "Yeah." She's like, "Oh, show these gentlemen and this lady here to I presume you want the one room, is it? For all of you?"
3 rooms.
She says, "Oh, well, that'll be 10 gold pieces then. Sorry, my mistake."
That's fine. I'll just give her 5 more.
Yeah, she takes the phone, and she's like, "Yeah, take him to 3 of the rooms." And he's like, "Oh, well, we've only got the 2 rooms free." And she's like, "Well," she's like, "Oh, well, Sam's leaving in like a few hours anyway. He'll be on his way. If you don't mind waiting a little bit, once he's out, we'll quickly go in. We'll clean around the second room, and you can occupy it to your heart's content. In the meantime, take him to the room that's free. Get him set up in there." And when Sam's like cleared out, go in, give it a clean over, give him a knock on the door, and then they can move whatever they want into the other room. Is that all right? And I was like, "Oh, yeah, of course, no problems." He's like, "Well, if you come with me," and he sort of turns around, leads you through this bar, like, you know, as like your sort of standard country bar, you get like a few like curious looks off like locals, like, "Oh, these people come here," but like nothing like too hostile. He leads you through to one of these fairly simple plain rooms. Like I said, there's a couple of straw mattresses in there, some blankets. It looks fairly clean, but it is like very simple fare. He says, "Right, well, this is the room we've got free at the minute, gentlemen, lady. If you get yourself sat up in here, like Gil said, once the other room's free, I'll give it a quick whip round, have a quick clean of it all, and then I'll give you the old rat-a-tat-tat on the door and let you know you can like move whatever. And I presume the lady's gonna be sleeping in the room, yeah?"
Yeah.
"Right, yeah, well, I'll give you the old rat-a-tat-tat on the door, and when it's free, and you can move her and her stuff into there. Anything else while I'm here?"
Do they serve food downstairs, or do we need to go somewhere else for food?
He's like, "Well, I can bring you some up. That's not a problem."
Yeah, we'll have some food, please.
Yeah. What sort of thing you after?
What sort of thing have you got?
He's like, "Well, we've got bread, cheese, we've got stew, we've got a bit of chicken, got some vegetables. You know, Gil grows a few vegetables out the back. We can rustle you up something like that."
Yeah, bring us a little bit of all of that.
Yeah, no problems. And he's like, yeah, I'll bring that up, and it might take me a little while because I've got to like check on a few other things first, but I'll bring some up to you, and I'll give you a knock on the door.
Yeah.
And he like opens the door for you and lets you in, like I say, to this simple room, and he heads off to like do his business.
Cool.
And for the moment, you're all left alone in this simple rustic room. Weimar's fallen asleep in the corner of the room. As he like falls asleep, and he's like, "Oh, internet connection."
He's exhausted, poor lad.
It's just some exhaustion levels, man. They get you in the end.
Cool. So we get settled. He brings our food. We have our food, and then I guess we sit down and talk about what's next.
Yeah. And basically, just to let you know, guys, probably what I'm going to do is have you guys talk about what you want to do next. We'll wrap up this session, and then obviously next session we can start with you guys exploring like the town proper.
Yeah.
And obviously I'll get prepped for that and whatever. But yeah. feel free to discuss what you want to do, and obviously hopefully like Weimar will jump back on at some point, you know, when you give him a nudge and like wake him up, and he's like, internet's reconnected. I was having this horrible dream where a vampire had pulled my modem plug out. There we go. Look, he's woke up already.
Yeah, so we need to find some sort of map or information on the local area, don't we?
Yeah.
Anything that can give us an idea. I don't know if this Beastman thing is in any way related to anything we need to do, or any sort of danger.
I think we just need to be mindful of them.
I mean, if it becomes a bit of an issue, then it'll be a good way into, you know, make a good relationship with someone of any sort of note in the castle or surrounding area.
Because I think we also want something resembling a guide and mercenaries or guards if there could be had.
I mean, if the sun sword is no sort of assistance for locating this other sword, I'm not sure who is going to be the right person or who we need to speak to, or so that's where we need to find out what's in the vicinity.
Find a local sage or a wizard.
Yeah, we need to find
knowledge, basically. Yeah.
A knowledgeable soul to assist us. So we need a Droon, I guess.
Yeah, if such a person's still around. Because I assume there's other sort of towns, castles, whatever's around this in this place.
Okay, as you guys are talking, there's a little bit of a knock at the door, and you see Harold, like the young man who escorted you to the room. He comes walking in, and he's carrying a wooden tray with some food on it. And at this point, I'm going to ask, can all three of you please roll me a D30?
Okay.
You might have to manually type that in.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the food that he has brought up for you, he has brought up for you a pork shank. That has been stuffed with herbs, etc. And it also appears to have, it's like in the centre of, on like a very crude sort of like clay plate in the centre of this wooden tray, and arranged around it, almost like the petals of a flower, are these like small, like thin, sort of like pink things, sort of vaguely slimy looking. You're not really sure what they are. They look like there's some sort of meat, but they've got like a bit of an odd texture to them, and they're like I said, these little sort of like almost like rounded oblongs of like thin pink meat.
Is this Harold guy still there?
Yeah, he's just like put it down, and he's like, do you want me to get any drinks or anything like that?
I don't know, but I'm going to poke at that, and I'm going to say, "What's that?"
He's like, lamb shank and lark's tongues.
Sorry, what tongues?
Larks.
Larks.
Yeah, larks. You know, larks.
Have I heard of such a thing before?
Is that you know, larks?
Okay. Okay, I'll look at the others and sort of, because I'm a bit puzzled by larks.
Local delicacy.
I'll just taste a bit and see what it tastes like.
If I had to describe in modern terms what these larks are, they taste a bit like spam. So they've put some spices on them and herbs, which is mainly the flavour you're getting. The meat's like fairly bland and a little bit gelatinous, so it's mainly the herbs that have been put on it that you're tasting. Obviously, they're like the ham shank tastes like ham.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not unpleasant. It's just a bit of an odd texture, and you're pretty sure that like if they hadn't put herbs on it, it would just taste like nothing.
Yeah.
It's as you're tasting it, you're like, oh well, this is obviously here to like bulk the meal out a little bit.
Okay. You need to get better at hunting.
Yeah.
Harold's like, get you any drinks or?
Yeah, I would have more ales, please.
Okay, right you are, and he heads off downstairs. A few moments later, he reappears, and I'm gonna just roll some random dice to see what drinks he's bought. You know me, I love my random dice.
Lark juice.
Finest lark juice.
I hate to think what that actually is.
Okay. So he comes back and he's brought to you these drinks. They're like very small pewter mugs with a sort of colourless liquid in them. And he's like, oh, they go, I bought you one up each. There's 4 nightly cures for you. That'll see you off to bed nicely.
Nice.
Nightly cures.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brock's just got a constant puzzled look on his face with all of this. He just wants meat and ale. That's it.
He says, "Oh, that'll be 7 silver pieces for the drinks."
And it comes in a little shot glass. Did you say?
Wait, it's not like a shot glass. It's like a half pint, effectively.
Do you not do bigger drinking mugs?
He says, "Oh, well, yeah, of course we do." He says, "But because this is a little bit on the strong side, we know, because like I say, it's like a nighttime tipple. You know, you have it before you go into bed. I mean, it's not something you drink in the morning before you went out to a day's work. Let's put it that way. So we mostly just sell it in the half pint. You know, people are maybe having a bit of trouble sleeping. You know, they're staying up nights. They're fretting about things. Little slug of this before you go to bed sees you off to dreamland just nicely."
I'll sample that to see if when he says it's a bit strong.
Okay, you taste it and it's got almost like a flavour like sort of like slightly singed or like burnt elderberries, like a sort of little fruity flavour, but like this little like burnt sort of like undernote to it. And after you've sipped it for a bit, you're like, oh, actually, yeah, that is a bit strong. I mean, it's not knocked you out or anything. Obviously, you're a big fella as well. But after you've been drinking it for a bit, you sort of like, you do feel like this slight sort of like sense of like languor come over you. You know, starting to feel like quite relaxed and languid. And you feel like it's one of these like warming sort of almost like spirit like drinks. As you drink it, you feel like the warmth flow down into your chest, and you're after a bit you're like, oh, actually,
Not bad.
he nods and says, "Oh, what did I tell you?" He says, "Oh, that'll see you off all right." Anyway, I've got to get back to it. Or get a lot of my guts for garters, people to serve and whatever. But if you need anything else, just pop your head round the door and give me a shout, and I'll leave you to your business. And he sort of nods at you all and he disappears off.
Okay.
So I guess we've got a bit of time still, haven't we, of the day? But it'll be just fact finding. I think that's what we decided, John. We're just looking to try and find some sort of map or someone with local knowledge that can give us the lay of the land. What local sites and places there are about, or any sort of sage or anything that can give us more insight.
Okay, well, you don't find a sage in the tavern. However, you make sort of general conversation over the course of the evening, talking to the locals and stuff like that. You're told, as you're making general chat to people, you're told that about a few different sort of sites that are in the nearby area. For instance, you're told that to the southwest of here, there's a sort of locally sort of famous, I suppose, place called Morrigan's Crag, and it's basically this. From what you gather from the locals chatting, it's this massive boulder, and there's this sort of antiquated militia they call and the person's laughing when he tells you this. Says they're called crag wardens, and he said originally they were founded to sort of guard this place from fairy invasions and stuff like that, but no one takes it very seriously now. It's a bit of a local joke, just local colour. Nothing's ever really happened there, but it's become a local tradition that people still join the crag wardens and protect this giant boulder, and occasionally there's festivals there and stuff like that. It's just a local sort of superstition. Nothing serious to it. You're told that to the northwest there is what's called the Wench Gate, and after a bit of you're told it's this enchanted wooden gate with these talking wooden faces on it, and you quickly realise that's the other side of the portal you've come through, and you hear that occasionally strange people just show up in the vicinity of the of this gate. Although the last time that happened was years and years ago and no one really remembers it. But there's all these old stories about some random person turning up not knowing where they were and not knowing what was going on, causing a bit of a hullabaloo in the area. But it's not really happened in recent memory. You're also told that further along the road, the Horse Eye Road as it's called to the northwest, past the Wench Gate, is a place called the Refuge of St. Key, and you're told that it's it originally used to be a sort of monastery or a way station, whereas now it's sort of diversified, and it's a bit of a way stop for local travellers. It still has a chapel attached to it, and there's still nightly services held there, and evening masses and stuff like that. You're told that Abbot Spatulard still holds the services there and whatever, even though he's quite an old man in his 60s. He still insists that all the candles are lit round this chapel for the evening mass. But mostly now it's just a little way stop for travellers, where they can stop off and get a little bit of simple food, rest their heads for a little bit before they're travelling on further into the Dolmen Wood. You also hear about a few different places that are mentioned that are inside Brackenwold. So I'm going to ask, can one of you, it's down to you guys which, roll me a D3 and let me know what you get.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Three.
Okay, and then I'm going to ask each of you to roll a d20, and I'm going to ask you each in turn to tell me what you get, and that will relate to like what location you've heard about. Okay, so Brock, what did you get?
17.
17. Okay, so you are told that on the eastern side of the wall of Brackenwold, there's what's called the Sunken Gate, and it's called the Sunken Gate because unlike the others that are sort of like built into the wall, this was like is built like a bit lower down because like the hill drops down a bit, and there's basically like a stone stairway that like leads down to this like smaller gate, and like mostly like tradesmen like bringing carts in and stuff like that use it. And it was originally designed, you know, in case like the fort was ever attacked and they needed to like evacuate quickly, they could like get people out through the side. Okay, Malcolm, what did you roll?
10.
Okay, you are told about the Grand Market, which was mentioned earlier by the guard. It takes place in a large plaza in the town, like inside the walls. You're told it takes place daily. It normally starts off so just before midday, and it goes on to just before nightfall. And obviously the morning hours, that's all the people setting up their stalls and stuff like that. And you're told because there's a lot of like traders know that a lot of travellers pass through Brackenwold, there's normally a fair like bewildering a variety of things there that can be purchased, like mostly focused on stuff travellers would find useful, like going into the Donwood and stuff like that. But you're told that there's not normally any like problems there, but just in case, you know, occasionally there's like a bit of thievery or whatever goes on, there's normally like at least like half a dozen of like the sort of like the watch sort of stationed around just to like make sure everything like runs smoothly. But like I say, it happens daily. And Weimar, what did you roll?
7.
Okay, 7. So you hear more about the Cathedral of St. Ignace, and you are told, again, you're told they're probably going to have a service in a couple of days, and you're told that it's this large sort of cathedral that's like pretty much like smack bang in the centre of Brackenwold. It's described as like a huge sort of like Gothic building, like, you know, reaching up to the heavens, manned by like very, very serious priests who take their duty very seriously. But on occasion, when they have these, normally it's not like an open door sort of thing, you just walk in and worship or whatever. Normally it's like mainly for like the priests who already like stay there and people like of the faith. But you're told that when they have these sort of ceremonies, these larger ceremonies, which they do a few times a year, they basically like throw the doors open for like everyone to come in, presumably in the hope that some of them will like take up like the worship of and the way of St. Cygnus. And those are the areas you find out about while you're just making general conversation during the evening.
Was there any mention of the Beastmen again in the general sort of tavern talk?
I tell you what, roll me a d6. Tell me what you get.
5.
Okay, so I should sort of ask, people seem a little bit hesitant to like talk about these. You eventually discover like most of the common folk hear about, like as in like the farmers and like the travellers and whatever, they refer to them as like goat men or like crookhorns. And when they talk about them, they seem to refer to them as like these disease-ridden, like feral, fucking dirty, like barely sentient, like creatures that sort of like, they're basically beasts that sort of like have this mockery of a human form. They're referred to them as like bandits and like brigands and stuff like that. They seem to like describe them as like being like a bit of like a disorganized like rabble, you know. Occasionally like, someone will roll out of the forest, they'll raid a farm or whatever and disappear back into the forest. They're not like a big organized force, and most of the danger from them seems to be like because they're so disease ridden, like catching, like if you survive an attack, you know, like catching illnesses and like diseases from them because they're so like dirty and like horrible. Like the actual like military threat seems to be fairly low. They're just sort of like raiders and like bandits almost.
Troublemakers. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. Like you hear a few farmers being like, "Oh yeah, you know, like they basically come out. When they're hungry or they're like there's too many of them, they come rumbling out of the forest. They'll find like a poorly defended farmstead or something like that. They'll raid it. They'll take whatever food and rob whatever they can, burn whatever they can't take, and then they'll just like disappear back into the forest." They say like, mostly like a lot of people have like originally moved to like Brackenwall because like, they don't really get that around here, because you can see them coming from miles away because of the hill and obviously the big wall and like the guards just mean that like they don't tend to attack Brackenwall. But like the isolated like little farmsteads and like woodcutters and people like that who live in the forest, they have to be a bit more on the guard against them.
That's cool.
Okay, so I think as the evening starts to wear on and you've all been like having this chat and conversation with locals, you all retire for the evening. Harold tells you that the other room's free. So is it just going to be, I presume it's going to be like Malcolm and Weimar in one room, Brock and Lan in the other? I assume that's how it's breaking down. So yeah, you all settle your stuff in the rooms. They're like opposite each other, so it's not going to be a problem to like communicate with each other. And you all start settling down for the evening. And as I've said, like the night liqueur does seem to be like a very nice like nightcap. You know, after you've like drank it, you get this general sort of like sense of like lethargy and sort of like warmth, and it's very relaxing. It's like alcoholic, like Horlicks basically. It's like effect it has, and you'll start settling down for the evening. And I think that is where we're going to draw a close to the session. Thank you very much for playing, guys. I hope you all enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks a minute, John.
Cool. Yep.
Obviously, we'll sort out XP and stuff like that, and we'll chat about what you want to do next time so I can plan for it. But for now, it just remains for me to thank my wonderful players and anyone who's watching this either now or in the future, and we're going to end the stream here, so take care.